Chapter 5:16. That old man from the battle sword sect stood in the air above the training ground. Although his aura wasn't gushing forth, the 9 great sects all felt a sense of pressure. This old man was definitely a supremely powerful existence. To think that the battle sword sect actually had such a character here. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect all stood up, their hair fluttering in anger. The lightning around them crackled and crackled, as though wanting to annihilate the heavens and earth, destroying everything. You actually dare to humiliate my Violet Thunder sect like this? An expert from the Violet Thunder sect roared in rage. Just because of a single sentence, an expert from his Violet Thunder sect was killed. Not only that, it was done in front of everyone. This was undoubtedly a ruthless slap to the face of their Violet Thunder sect. Not only did you not die after killing the disciples of my battle sword sect, you even dare to shamelessly suggest to lift the restriction on cultivation bases? Do you really think my battle sword sect is so easily bullied? If those from the Violet Thunder sect are unhappy, feel free to come up here. There's no restriction on cultivation bases. That old man coldly snorted, his voice akin to the humming of 10,000 swords, causing the entire space to tremble. It was as though there was a boundless sword chi whistling by their ears. It was extremely unbearable. Too powerful. He was definitely a supremely powerful celestial phenomenon ascendant. He arrogantly said that if the people from the Violet Thunder sect wanted to fight, they could do so. That old man's words were akin to a declaration of war against the Violet Thunder sect. Although the experts from the Violet Thunder sect were enraged, none of them dared to stand out. They were the ones who stood out. Yet the old man had already slain one of their experts. At this moment, how could the other sects step out to help them? Good, very good. The leader of the experts from the Violet Thunder sect was infuriated to the extreme. However, he knew that his opponent had heaven-defying methods. If they fought, he would definitely be defeated. Given the way the battle sword sect did things, they might really start a massacre here. To them, this was something they couldn't accept. Even if they were humiliated, they could only swallow it down. If you don't dare to fight, shut up for this old man. That old man coldly snorted. After which, he turned his gaze onto the others, his eyes filled with a tyrannical might as he coldly stated, "Who else wants to challenge me? Those who are at the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper and below can go up at any time. If there's anyone who says there's no restriction on their cultivation base, come up and fight me together." Such arrogant words. It could be said that he didn't put the 9 great sects and the royal clan of Granshang in his eyes. But after thinking about it carefully, he realized that the other party did indeed have the qualifications to be arrogant. The strength of this old man caused the Violet Thunder sect to feel such trepidation. Even after death, they didn't dare to accept the challenge. Most probably, no one here dared to say that they could deal with him. As for those below the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, Qing'er and Qin Wentian were invincible. No matter how many there were, they would be able to kill as many as they wanted. Sweeping through everything, nobody could obstruct them. This was talent. Turning their eyes over, the crowd stared at the 2 figures standing side by side. Qin Wentian was fiendishly handsome and tyrannical, akin to a descendant of an ancient demon king. Qing'er was incomparably beautiful, yet as cold as ice. She was a peerless beauty. In the battle today, Qin Wentian fought against the other outstanding geniuses, passing the test of the 9 great sections. Although Qing'er only appeared for a moment, her domineering attitude left an indelible impression in the hearts of the crowd. The 2 of them stood together, exuding a magnificence that surpassed the generations, causing all the other geniuses to lose their splendor. After joining the battle sword sect, their future would surely be even more terrifying. Many mused silently. Most probably, no one would be able to obstruct them today. Don't you think it's a little inappropriate for you to be so domineering in the territory of my Granshang Empire? At this moment, an indifferent voice drifted over. The person who spoke was none other than the I King of Granshang, Shang Tong. No matter what, Xian King City was one of the 7 great royal cities of Granshang. Those from the battle sword sect simply didn't have it in their eyes at all. Are the people of Granshang also lacking in upbringing? How dare you speak so rudely to your elders? The eyes of the old man from the battle sword sect swept over to Shang Tong as a terrifying sharpness gushed forth. Ordering so many people to bully the disciples of my sect? Do you really think that you, a prince, can use your prestige to bully my battle sword sect? If you dare to say another word about touching the disciples of my battle sword sect, I will kill you on the spot. Do you believe me? As the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying might enveloped Shang Tong. The experts beside him all stepped out, blocking in front of Shang Tong. However, the sword chi was too terrifying. It felt as though it could slay Shang Tong at any moment. The disparity between the two of them was simply too great. There was no way to make up for it. Shang Tong was protected by the experts behind him. His golden eyes flickered with a cold light. He didn't expect that there would actually be people who dared to bully him in the territory of Grand Shang. The surrounding space was once again filled with silence, incomparably heavy. Seems like the battle sword sect came prepared. There's actually such a powerful expert hidden among them. This trip to the Xian King city was suggested by the battle sword sect. Coincidentally, they met Qin Wentian and Qin Wentian, these two supreme geniuses. However, what's the original purpose of the battle sword sect? Many people felt puzzled in their hearts. The strength of this old man was extremely terrifying. Before this, he had been quietly sitting among the crowd of people from the battle sword sect, not revealing his true strength. Yet, his strength was so overwhelming that it was even stronger than those from the 9 great sections. Is there anyone who dares to step up? Does the other sects in Grand Shang have no one capable? You guys can't even bring out a single decent character, yet you are still so arrogant? Could it be that you only dare to act arrogantly when you have the advantage in numbers? The old man roared again upon seeing the silence in the air. The face of the 9 great sects in Grand Shang has all been thrown away by you guys. This trip is truly disappointing. The countenances of those from the 9 great sects alternated between shades of green and white. Their strength couldn't be compared to the old man, and none of them could deal with Qin Wentian and Qin Wentian. How could they still act arrogantly? They had completely lost their confidence. If they were weak, they could only be suppressed by others. Even if they were humiliated, they could only swallow it down. Since there's no one here, Lin Shui, let's return. The old man spoke. Those from the battle sword sect all stood up as sword chi towered up into the heavens. They all stepped on their swords, preparing to soar into the skies at any moment. The old man waved his hand as a beam of sword light appeared beside Qin Wentian and Qing. He then spoke to them, "Ride on my sword." The distance between the Xian King city and the battle sword sect was a distance of 200,000 miles. Given Qin Wentian's speed, it would take him several days to reach there. But given the strength of that old man, it wouldn't take too long. Celestial phenomenon ascendants had inconceivably fast speed. Traversing tens of thousands of miles in a single day wasn't a problem at all. "Senior, please wait a moment." Qin Wentian didn't leave immediately. He stepped out and stared in the direction of those from the Grand Shang Empire, before turning his gaze onto the 6 great powers of Xian King City. Back then, the 6 great powers ganged up on me because of the constellation fruits. Hence I Qin came here today for revenge. If any of you want revenge, feel free to come to the battle sword sect to look for me. However, there's one more person who must die today. As the sound of his voice faded, his gaze instantly locked onto Yin Cheng from the Yin clan. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's gaze, Yin Cheng's countenance paled as he howled, "Grandpa, save me." However, a terrifying beam of light shot out from the center of Qin Wentian's brows. His will of mandates directly blasted into Yin Cheng's sea of consciousness. In an instant, Yin Cheng only felt a scene of purgatory appearing in his sea of consciousness. Corpses piled up like mountains as blood dyed the heavens and earth red. Numerous devils and devils rushed towards him, and the one in the lead was none other than Qi Yezi, whom he had forced to his death back then. "This is an illusion, it's not real." Yin Cheng howled in rage, wanting to struggle free. However, he only saw the numerous devils and devils directly grabbing at him with a strength of over 1,000,000 jin. With a muffled sound, the crowd saw Yin Cheng coughing out blood 3 times in a row. His countenance was as pale as paper as he directly collapsed to the ground, killed by Qin Wentian through the air. The spectators stared in shock at this scene. Qin Wentian's ability to kill those with a lower cultivation base was simply unfathomable. Most probably, it was the power of his eye technique, similar to Shang Tong's innate techniques. The experts from the Yin clan pointed their fingers at Qin Wentian. Their killing intent towered up into the sky. However, Qin Wentian merely stared at them calmly. There was no joy nor sorrow in his eyes. Back then, the 6 major powers of Qianqing City ganged up on him because he didn't have any background, which was why they dared to do so. Now he borrowed the power of the battle sword sect to forcefully annihilate Yin Cheng. Yet the Yin clan could only feel hatred. They didn't dare to seek revenge. It was as though the tables had been flipped. One couldn't help but say that the situation had changed drastically. In just a short span of a few months, the heavens and earth had been turned upside down. Because of the pursuit in the heavenly mountain range, it led to a bloody war in Qianqing City today, implicating the 9 great sects in the process. I'll wait for you all to come and take revenge. Qin Wentian stared at the experts from the Yin clan. After which, he and Qing stepped onto the sword beam. Little Rascal transformed into a white shadow and leapt into Qin Wentian's embrace, causing a look of bewilderment to appear on the faces of many. Go! The old man from the battle sword sect roared. A moment later, the whistling of swords filled the air as the group of experts soared through the air, transforming into beams of white light. Let's go! The crowd felt a sense of loss. The battle today was truly fascinating. Yet they felt that it was too short. That young man and woman were simply too powerful, with outstanding talent. In the future, they would definitely be able to shine brightly in the battle sword sect. The battle sword sect only came here to pick up the 2 of them. What's going on exactly? There were also people who were bewildered. They couldn't understand. Shang Yu watched on as Qin Wentian killed Yin Cheng and left. An indescribable feeling filled her heart. This person was someone she couldn't be compared to. The 2 of them were people from different worlds, even if she was the princess of Qianqing City. Ji Shui and Su Feng also watched as Qin Wentian left. A smile flickered in Ji Shui's eyes as she spoke in a low voice. Let's hope that in the future, we would be able to hear his legend in Granshang Empire. Qin Wentian's trip to the battle sword sect would definitely cause a storm of commotion in the royal sacred region. The royal capital of Granshang could be considered the border region of the royal sacred region. True experts were as common as the clouds there, and geniuses were innumerable. Geniuses like these from Qianqing City could be seen everywhere. For this trip to the battle sword sect, the true elites of the 9 great sects didn't come out. From afar in the air, Qin Wentian and Qing stood on the same sword beam. Qin Wentian stared at Qing as he smiled. Qing, when did you become so powerful? Your mandates have actually reached the perfection boundary. Qing stared at Qin Wentian as she replied in a low voice, I've eaten the fruits you gave me. Qin Wentian's eyes flashed. The 2 constellation fruits that contained spatial energy were actually eaten by this lass. No wonder her mandate of space had already reached the perfection boundary. She was truly a glutton. Was it delicious? Qin Wentian had a smile that was not a smile on his face as he asked. Qing stared at Qin Wentian. Her eyes brightened as an expression of contemplation appeared on her face. Her lips trembled as she replied, disgusting. Oh. Qin Wentian stared at the serious expression on Qing's face. He did his best to suppress the urge to laugh out loud. This last Qing was truly adorable. Chapter 517. The royal sacred region spanned across the boundless territories, and there were countless sects and clans, as well as countless ancient countries. The royal sacred sect, the hegemon of this boundless territory, was also located in this region. In this region, other than the hegemon, there were the 9 sects, 7 clans, and twin empires. The 9 sects naturally referred to the 9 great sects of the royal sacred region. The 7 clans referred to the 7 transcendent ancient clans, their strength unfathomably terrifying. It was just that they didn't belong to the royal sacred sect directly, but the descendants of these 7 clans all felt it was an honor to join the royal sacred sect. The twin empires referred to the Granshang Empire and the Granzhou Empire. If one looked further, the 3 empires, Granzhou, Granshang, and Granxia, all belonged to the royal sacred region and were governed by the royal sacred sect. It was just that because the area they controlled was too vast, the royal sacred sect wasn't willing to care about places that were too far away. Not only that, half of the Granzhou Empire's territory was within the royal sacred region. The most important royal capital of the Granshang Empire was there as well. As for the already destroyed Granxia, the royal sacred region no longer paid much attention to it. From this, one could very well imagine how vast this region was. The number of living beings here was truly innumerable, and it was unknown how many experts there were. Not only that, other than the 9 sects, 7 clans and twin empires, there were still many weaker sects and clans and even ancient countries. They belonged to the second tier of powers, but they were still exceedingly powerful. If there was a day where a few peak characters appeared, they might be able to replace the 9 sects, 7 clans and twin empires. One must know that in the history of the Royal Sacred Region, these powers had all been replaced before. 5,000 years ago, among the 9 sects, there was no battle sword sect. It was just that the battle sword sect suddenly rose up and obtained an important position in the Royal Sacred Sect, gradually becoming an important branch of the Royal Sacred Sect. This was also the reason why the various sects wanted to send their disciples to the Royal Sacred Sect. For some of the second-tier powers, their accumulations weren't any weaker compared to the 9 great sections. It was just that their strength was too weak compared to the Royal Sacred Sect, which was why they had no way to replace them. Right now, Qin Wentian had arrived at such a region. Along the way, he flew on his flying sword and stared at the flourishing scenery below, feeling shock in his heart. The people of the battle sword sect didn't fly too high, and they could clearly see everything below. Everywhere they passed, the places were all much more flourishing compared to the 9 continents of Grand Xia. Sometimes they would pass by some tyrannical aristocratic clans, and the experts of those clans would soar up into the skies, exuding a terrifying aura that could easily sweep through the 9 continents of Grand Xia. Qin Wentian also flew past an ancient country. As they passed by, the territory of the ancient country was an empire, they as kings as they as sacred clans of the lands, they as emperors they could, they as they could, as they as and when they as ancient as and they as Qin Wentian also flew past an ancient country. The territory of this ancient country was exceedingly vast, and when they passed by the royal palace of the ancient country, countless experts clad in armor soared up into the skies. That kind of aura caused one to feel suffocated, and upon seeing that they were from the battle sword sect, there were instantly nobles who came out to send them off. After the experts of the battle sword sect knew that he came from the desolate Grand Xia, they purposely did this. Evidently, they had put in a lot of effort to allow him to broaden his horizons, allowing him to understand how vast the heavens and earth were. From his conversation with Lin Shuai and the others, only then did he understand that Grand Xia was actually an abandoned land of desolation in the eyes of the experts of the Royal Sacred Region. This caused Qin Wentian to be filled with a myriad of emotions. Qin Wentian also finally understood why Junyu was so arrogant when he came to Grand Xia. He was a disciple of the Royal Sacred Sect. How could he have any regard for the desolation of Grand Xia? On the contrary, the people of Grand Xia rarely came to the Royal Sacred Region before. Most probably, they didn't have enough understanding of Junyu's status. However, all of this only caused Qin Wentian to be even more excited. His eyes gleamed with sharpness as he exuded an imposing aura. Qing'er, who was beside him, was as calm as ever. She didn't say anything, and even when the experts of the battle sword sect tried to talk to her, she ignored them, causing the experts of the battle sword sect to smile bitterly. But knowing her personality, they wouldn't lower themselves to her level. Finally, they arrived at their destination, the battle sword sect located in the southern regions of the Royal Sacred Region. In Qin Wentian's imagination, the battle sword sect should be located in a vast, desolate plain with many outstanding geniuses wanting to join it. But when he arrived, he couldn't help but to smile bitterly. The surroundings of the battle sword sect were bustling with activity. Outside the battle sword sect, there was an ancient sword erected there. This was the boundary of the battle sword sect. In front of them, a gigantic sword pierced through the heavens, as though it wanted to pierce through the clouds. In front of them there were many ancient peaks, and numerous buildings stood there, resembling immortal palaces in the heavens. The battle sword sect spanned a few hundred miles, but it was located in the middle of a flourishing region, not in the wilderness. Outside the boundary of the battle sword sect, there were countless silhouettes walking about. Their gazes were fixed on the battle sword sect, as hints of reverence could be seen in their eyes. "Why? Are you very disappointed?" Lin Shuai stood beside Qin Wentian as he asked with a smile. "How can that be? I'm just a little surprised." I thought the battle sword sect would be located in the middle of a mountain range. Qin Wentian laughed. I Wu Xiu roamed the world with the sword in my hands, living in the world of mortals. The battle sword sect isn't as transcendent as you think. We're all people of the world of mortals, cultivating our swordsmanship, roaming the world, settling our debts of gratitude and enmity, living a carefree and unrestrained life. Lin Shuai laughed. For those who are unable to face their own hearts, it's impossible for them to reach a higher realm in the path of the sword. The reason why the battle sword sect is so lax in disciplining their disciples is because they don't want to restrict them. Remember this after joining the battle sword sect. There's no need for you to follow the rules. You only need to face your own heart and persevere. If there comes a day when you feel that the battle sword sect isn't suitable for you, you can just leave on your flying sword and the sect won't make things difficult for you. What a carefree and unrestrained battle sword sect. Qin Wentian felt his heart trembling when he heard Lin Shuai's words. Back in Xian King City, he had heard many rumors about the battle sword sect. Seems like the rumors were true. This sect was different from the other sections. They were truly carefree and open-minded, cultivating their swordsmanship, roaming the world, settling their debts of gratitude and enmity, living a carefree and unrestrained life. As the two of them spoke, the group of them had already entered the battle sword sect. When they got closer, they discovered that the battle sword sect was akin to an immortal palace. Mountain springs and waterfalls flowed down, and there were people chatting and laughing in the pavilions. There were even people practicing their swordsmanship in the training grounds of the ancient mountain. Upon seeing this group of people returning, many in the battle sword sect inclined their heads and glanced over only to see many disciples gathered together. The cultivation bases of the members of the battle sword sect were all at least at the heavenly dipper realm. Even if they were in their 30s or 40s, they still looked young. Hence it wasn't strange at all. Seventh senior brother is back. And he even brought 2 young men and women with him. Are they the newly recruited disciples? Beneath a waterfall, a group of young men and women stared in the direction of Lin Shuai and the others. A young man clad in white had a look of curiosity on his face. That woman is so beautiful. Does she also want to join our battle sword sect? If that's the case, the title of the #1 beauty of our battle sword sect would definitely belong to her. The eyes of a young man beside him gleamed as he stared at Qing. Humph! A beautiful young woman beside him coldly snorted. This young woman was tall and had a curvaceous figure. Her skin was as white as snow and her eyes were bright. She had an oval-shaped face and was extremely beautiful. She glared at the young man beside her as she cursed in a low voice, "Lecherous fellow. Lust nature." The young man casually spoke, not minding it at all as he laughed. What a pity junior sister is so distant from senior brother. If junior sister was willing to marry senior brother would definitely not look at other women. Scram. That young woman ruthlessly glared at him. Beside her, a skinny young man with an ancient sword strapped to his back suddenly spoke. Seventh senior brother accompanied the elders to the battle sword sect for some unknown reason. Now that he has returned, he even brought 2 young men with him. Could it be that this trip was all for the sake of these 2? Our battle sword sect has never set such a precedent before. Indeed, it's strange. Senior brother is here. The young woman beside him spoke. After which, Lin Shuai and the others arrived. The old man in the lead instructed, "Lin Shuai, I will leave the arrangements to you." Okay. Lin Shuai nodded. After which, the old man led the group away. Seventh senior brother, you have returned. That young woman stepped out as she smiled at Lin Shuai. Her attitude was completely different from how she treated the young man beside her. Junior sister's heart is blooming with joy upon seeing seventh senior brother's return. How sad. The young man who was scolded as a lecherous fellow earlier sighed. After which, he turned his gaze onto Qing as he asked, "I wonder how I should address this young lady?" Qing coldly glanced at him and ignored him, treating him like air. This caused many in the surroundings to have smiles on their faces. The young man also had an awkward expression on his face. "You better be more obedient." Lin Shuai glared at him. After which, he introduced to the others, "This is junior brother Qin Wentian and junior sister Qing. From now on, they are also disciples of the battle sword sect. Junior sister Qing doesn't like to talk, so don't disturb her." If there's anything you want to say, just tell junior brother Qin. He will naturally inform junior sister. Qing'er appeared in the training grounds of Xian King City because she wanted to protect Qin Wentian. On the way here, Lin Shuai knew that the relationship between the two of them was extraordinary, which was why he gave this instruction. Yes, senior brother. The others all nodded their heads in agreement. Qin Wentian had been observing silently, yet he couldn't help but feel shock in his heart. Lin Shuai was actually only his senior brother? He had initially thought that Lin Shuai's seniority would be a level higher than his. After all, other than the old man, Lin Shuai was the leader of the battle sword sect. What he didn't know was that because Lin Shuai was the personal disciple of the battle sword sect's sect leader, his status was extraordinary. My name is Yi Lingshuang. Junior brother and junior sister can refer to me as senior sister Yi or senior sister Lingshuang. That female smiled at Qin Wentian and Qing'er as she introduced herself. Jiang Huai. The skinny man nodded to the two of them. Lu Yun. The lecherous young man also smiled. The others introduced themselves one by one, and Qin Wentian nodded his head in return. Junior brother. This pet is so adorable. Can I take a look? Yi Lingshuang stared at little rascal in Qin Wentian's arms as a bright light flashed in her eyes. She had slain many demonic beasts before, but it was very rare for her to see such an adorable little demonic pet. Okay. Qin Wentian nodded. He loosened his grip, and little rascal leaped into Yi Lingshuang's embrace, causing a smile to appear on Yi Lingshuang's face. The little guy arched against her chest and curled up there, as if he was enjoying it very much. He said in a childish voice so soft. Yi Lingshuang was instantly petrified. Her beautiful eyes stared unblinkingly at little rascal in her arms. Qin Wentian's face was filled with black lines. Staring at little rascal in Yi Lingshuang's arms, he felt an impulse to strangle it to death. This bastard really knew how to talk. Cough cough. Lu Yun coughed, staring at little rascal with jealousy in his eyes. After which, he turned to Qin Wentian as a meaningful smile appeared on his face. So it turns out that junior brother is a kindred spirit. Chapter 518. When Qin Wentian heard Lu Yun's words, he wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. He snuck a glance at Yi Lingshuang only to see that this senior apprentice sister of his was also looking at him with a smile that was not a smile. That look of disdain in her eyes made Qin Wentian want to lift his head up and sigh to the heavens. He had just joined the battle sword sect, and it seemed like his reputation had already been completely ruined by little rascal. Little rascal, scram back here for me. Qin Wentian glared hatefully at little rascal, only to see little rascal flipping its body over and lazily lying on top of Qin Wentian's ample bosom. Its eyes were narrowed as an expression of intoxication could be seen on its face. Junior brother has taught us well. Yi Lingshuang giggled. Qin Wentian howled in his heart. Even if he jumped into the heavenly river, he wouldn't be able to wash his name clean. Junior brother, junior sister. Let me bring you all around the battle sword sect. Lin Shuai spoke, helping Qin Wentian out of this predicament. Qin Wentian nodded his head as the few of them soared up into the air. Yi Lingshuang and the rest followed behind them as they soared into the air. The battle sword sect has a span of a few hundred miles, and has a total of 3,000 disciples. The ancient peaks of the battle sword sect are all connected to each other. The disciples will be staying in wooden houses located in the middle of the mountain peaks. You can choose any wooden house as your residence. Lin Shuai took a step in front of Qin Wentian, as he pointed to a wooden house located in the middle of the mountain walls. The scenery was beautiful and the atmosphere was extremely quiet. Also, there was a certain distance between the wooden houses, so that the disciples wouldn't disturb each other when cultivating. The residences are completely separated from the cultivation grounds of the battle sword sect. Look over there. That's the training grounds of our battle sword sect. Disciples can spar there, and if there's a conflict between disciples, the elders can mediate between them. If there's no way to mediate, both parties can request for a final battle. Lin Shuai pointed to a location. Over there was a majestic training ground with many disciples gathered below. Qin Wentian made a mental note in his heart. The battle sword sect was the sect with the least number of disciples out of the 9 great sects, and their recruitment process was extremely strict. But who would have thought that they would actually have 3,000 disciples? From this, one could see how terrifying a great sect was. As for the other 8 great sects, their disciples should be in the tens of thousands, and all of them were elites. In fact, if one thought about it carefully, this wasn't anything strange at all. The royal sacred region was incomparably vast. There were countless sects and aristocratic clans, as well as the 3 empires and many ancient countries. The population of the 9 great sects was extremely high, and other than the royal sacred sect, the number of geniuses who wished to join the 9 great sects was innumerable. Even if the battle sword sect chose only 1 out of 1,000, there would still be several hundred of them. After so many years of accumulation, 3,000 disciples was definitely considered a small number. That place is the battle sword platform. When something big happens in the sect, the drums on the battle sword platform would shake the heavens and all the disciples of the battle sword sect would immediately gather there. Lin Shuai pointed to a vast area. Qin Wentian committed this to memory and continued following Lin Shuai. Up ahead, 9 ancient mountains appeared, each of them occupying an extremely large area. This is the Cultivation Mountain. There are too many disciples in the battle sword sect, and it's naturally impossible for us to teach them all at the same time. According to the different specialties of the disciples, there would be 9 sword sovereigns to guide them. Each of the 9 sword sovereigns would be in charge of a mountain, and there would also be elders and attendants under the sword sovereigns. Senior brother, which mountain are you from? Qin Wentian curiously asked. Senior brother is the personal disciple of the first mountain Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian is also the sect leader of our battle sword sect. Yi Lingshuang stared at Qin Wentian as she continued. As for the rest of us, we are also disciples of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. It's just that we aren't his personal disciples. Our masters are the elders of the first mountain. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. There were 3,000 disciples in the battle sword sect. It was naturally impossible for all of them to be personally taught by the 9 sword sovereigns. As the personal disciple of the sect leader, it was no wonder that Lin Shuai had such a transcendent status. Within the 9 mountains, there are library pavilions containing innate techniques, cultivation arts, and ancient records. Disciples of the various mountains are free to browse through them. If we continue forward, that would be the cultivation grounds of the supreme elders of our battle sword sect. Don't go there recklessly, Lin Shuai instructed to Qin Wentian. Other than this, within the ancient mountains of the battle sword sect, there would be ancient ruins left behind by the ancestors of our battle sword sect. You are free to browse through them as you wish. Lin Shuai continued. Also, I want to bring you to an important location. After speaking, Lin Shuai's silhouette turned as Qin Wentian and the rest followed behind. He cast a puzzled glance at Yi Lingshuang, only to see her. Lu Yun and the rest all had solemn expressions on their faces. It was as though the place Lin Shuai was talking about had an extraordinary significance. Not long after, Lin Shuai brought him to the peak of a mountain. Over here, there were actually many disciples gathered. When they saw Lin Shuai, they all nodded their heads to him and greeted him as senior brother. Lin Shuai was the personal disciple of the sect leader, and his cultivation base had already broken through to celestial phenomenon. He wasn't any weaker compared to some of the attendants in the sect, hence he was naturally respected. Lin Shuai nodded his head lightly. Standing on the mountain peak, the crowd glanced at Qin Wentian and Qing behind Lin Shuai, feeling bewildered in their hearts. Were these 2 new disciples of the battle sword sect? They were actually personally brought here by senior brother Lin Shuai. Qin Wentian's aura was reserved, yet he was extraordinarily handsome. Qing'er was cold, yet her beauty was unparalleled. Yi Lingshuang was a rare beauty, yet even she paled in comparison to Qin Wentian. This caused the crowd to involuntarily sigh in admiration. These 2 new disciples seemed to be extraordinary. Qin Wentian wasn't in the mood to think too much about it. At this moment his gaze was directed ahead. Opposite the ancient mountain there was a thatched hut. This thatched hut seemed ordinary and extremely simple, but its surroundings seemed to be filled with a mysterious power, as though it was the only thing in this world. With this thatched hut here, all other sceneries seemed to lose their splendor. The grass hut deeply attracted Qin Wentian's gaze. The seemingly ordinary grass hut exuded such an extraordinary aura, which was truly shocking. He used his perception to spy on it, but discovered that his perception was blocked by an invisible force, unable to approach the grass hut at all. Senior brother, what's in the thatched cottage? Qin Wentian asked curiously. Lin Shuai lightly shook his head. Nobody knows. Let alone me, even master has never entered before. Or to put it more accurately, he can't enter at all. Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He didn't expect the battle sword sect to have such a mystical place. This place is the cultivation ground of the founder of the battle sword sect. It's rumored that the founder was a sword immortal-like character. Some people speculate that his sword is hidden within the grass hut, while others say that his sword arts are hidden within. Naturally, there are also some who say that there's nothing inside. However, the path leading to the grass hut contains the essence of the founder's cultivation. Lin Shuai's countenance was solemn. Only now did Qin Wentian notice that the height of the grass hut was the same as the mountain. Below them, there was a path leading to the grass hut. At this moment, there were several people attempting to ascend it, yet they had only reached the foot of the mountain. The distance to the grass hut was too far, and there was basically no way for them to ascend it. At this moment, Qin Wentian heard a terrifying sword whistling sound at the top of the mountain path, after which he saw a terrifying sword rainbow slashing through the air, exuding an extremely terrifying might. The entire area seemed to be filled with thunderous booms. Junior sister Han Yu is so powerful. She actually managed to ascend to the 9th step, as expected of the dragon and phoenix of our battle sword sect. Many people exclaimed in admiration. Yeah, junior sister Han Yu is a personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Her talent is the highest among the new disciples this year. Those who could join the battle sword sect were all outstanding characters. Yet these people were praising junior sister Han Yu unceasingly. Naturally, Qin Wentian had also noticed that the sword rainbow earlier was unleashed by a maiden clad in a fiery phoenix feather robe. This maiden was naturally none other than the junior sister Han Yu they were talking about. This maiden's countenance was as cold as frost and her figure was like fire. Her robes were the color of fire, as though they were weaved from phoenix feathers. Just a single glance at her would cause one to be mesmerized by her heroic bearing. This is junior sister Li Han Yu. She joined the Battle Sword Sovereigness not too long ago, and was accepted as a personal disciple by the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Her background is also extraordinary. She's a descendant of the Li clan of the Southern Domain, and possesses the bloodline of the Blood Phoenix. Although her cultivation base is only at the peak of the 5th level of Heavenly Dipper, it's easy for her to defeat ordinary cultivators at the peak of the 6th level. She's truly a rare genius. Lin Shuai spoke in a low voice to Qin Wentian, his eyes flashing with admiration. Evidently, he regarded Li Han Yu very highly. There were so many geniuses in the Battle Sword sect. It was already extremely difficult to join the Battle Sword sect, let alone becoming a personal disciple of the 9 Mountain Sword Sovereigns. Senior brother, who should I become a disciple of? Qin Wentian asked with some bewilderment in his voice. The 9 Mountain Sword Sovereigns were the 9 factions of the Battle Sword sect. At this moment he still didn't know which mountain he should join. Naturally, you should join my master, Sword Sovereigness Ling Tian. Lin Shuai smiled. The path up the grass hut is extremely rugged. Ordinary people would find it hard to even take a single step. Junior brother Qin, do you want to give it a try? What's on the path up the grass hut? Why is it so difficult? Qin Wentian asked. You'll know after you take a look. The path up the grass hut is a supreme treasure of our battle sword sect. Its value isn't inferior to the library of the 9 Mountain Sword Sovereigns. Not only that, it's open to you unconditionally as long as you are able to ascend it. I've heard that there was once a senior in our battle sword sect who managed to ascend the grass hut and reach the peak. After that, he became the #1 genius in our battle sword sect. Lin Shuai laughed, his words causing Qin Wentian to be even more curious. After which, he nodded his head. I'll give it a try then. Qing'er, do you want to go? I'm not going. Qing'er didn't seem to be too interested as she shook her head. Back then, there was an expert from her clan who passed on many cultivation arts to her. Regardless of cultivation arts or innate techniques, she didn't lack any of them. In fact, she even had many secret arts. The only reason why she joined the Battle Sword sect was because of Qin Wentian. If not, given the strength of the Battle Sword sect, It would be impossible for her to follow Qin Wentian in the dark. Hence, she could only follow Qin Wentian. And wait for me here. Qin Wentian nodded his head to Qing Air. After which, his silhouette flickered as he descended from the air. An instant later, he arrived at the bottom of the grass hut and stared at the mountain path ahead. When he inclined his head and stared at the grass hut again, he felt that it was extremely far away, as though it would be impossible for him to cross it. Qin Wentian took a step forward. Instantly everything changed. In front of him there was no longer a mountain path, but an ancient path. The grass hut appeared at the end of the ancient path, and in front of Qin Wentian, a mountain rampart appeared. On this mountain rampart, there was an incomparably exquisite diagram inscribed on it. Upon seeing the diagram on the mountain rampart, Qin Wentian was instantly immersed in it. He couldn't help but sigh in admiration. No wonder Lin Shuai said that the value of this place wasn't any lower than the library. This ancient path itself was a treasure trove. Chapter 519. The diagram on the mountain rampart was right before Qin Wentian's eyes. It was extremely vivid and lifelike, with a myriad of transformations. Within it, there seemed to be a great rock soaring through the skies, as fast as lightning, shuttling through the clouds with shocking speed. At this moment a beam of sword light cascaded down from the skies, stunning the heavens and earth. The great rock soared through the air, yet it was still slower than that sword. As the sword descended, the great rock died. This diagram is the beheading rock diagram. Qin Wentian's heart pounded. He didn't expect that just the first step would cause such a terrifying diagram to appear on the rampart. Although there was only a single sword strike, it contained a myriad of transformations. This was a great Tao of the sword, containing boundless might. If one could successfully cultivate it, they would be able to slay a great rock. Sword chi radiated from Qin Wentian as he unceasingly slashed out with his sword. However, his speed was too slow. Although in the past, he already felt that his speed was extremely fast, in front of the mountain rampart, Qin Wentian felt that his speed was like that of an ant. Slow, extremely slow to the extreme. Qin Wentian had a feeling that he would never be able to slash out such a magnificent sword strike. Something's wrong. The first step on the ancient path leading to the grass hut is the mountain rampart. Most probably, there's an intent to comprehend the sword here. If not, why would Li Hanyu take a step forward after slashing out with her sword? She must have comprehended a single sword strike before she could advance. Since she could take 9 steps, how can I not be able to take a single step? Qin Wentian mused. Although Lin Shuai didn't tell him directly, he already understood that the path leading to the grass hut was the path to comprehend the sword. Also, this path was left behind by the founder of the battle sword sect. How could it be easy to comprehend the sword of the founder? How could he not be patient? This diagram is extraordinary. It's majestic and majestic. My current strength is simply insufficient in front of it. I need to create a dreamscape. Qin Wentian mused. After which, he closed his eyes and calmed himself, activating his cultivation art. An instant later, Qin Wentian stepped into the dreamscape. In the air, the mountain and river diagram was still there. This was something he obtained long ago in the dark forest of Chu. As he grew stronger, he discovered how extraordinary this diagram was. At this moment, the diagram formed a dreamland of mountains and rivers. Qin Wentian stood proudly in the clouds, and in front of him, a great rock soared through the sky. It flew past him like a bolt of lightning, so fast that it was impossible to see it with the naked eye. However, the Qin Wentian in the dream world was no ordinary person. He stood above the clouds and watched as the rock soared through the sky. A beam of sword light descended from the sky and directly slashed the rock. In an instant the rock died. I can't see through it, Qin Wentian said calmly. He repeated this scene over and over again as he continued to comprehend this shocking sword. Gradually, Qin Wentian saw a different transformation. This sword was like the wind. No matter how fast the rock was, it couldn't escape the wind. The wind was everywhere, and no matter how fast the rock soared, it had to ride the wind. This sword was hidden within the wind. I have never comprehended the will of wind. Can I comprehend the sword? Qin Wentian murmured. He also wielded his sword, but it was one thing to understand, but it was impossible for him to do it. Moreover, he didn't understand the wind. It's impossible for all the disciples in the battle sword sect to be proficient in the mandate of wind. The only way to comprehend the sword is to comprehend it. Qin Wentian closed his eyes and exited the dreamland. Staring at the mountain rampart in front of him, he stretched out his hand and actually touched it. A thought appeared in his mind, and an instant later, a startling beam of sword light shot up into the sky, akin to the howling of a cold wind, tearing apart the heavens and earth. The mountain rampart dissipated. A smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face as he stepped out. He saw the second mountain rampart and the second diagram. He saw a giant. This giant's head touched the heavens, trampling the earth. With a single stomp it could shatter mountains, with a single step it could sever rivers. With a single palm it could even shatter the heavens. This scene was extremely shocking. Just as the giant was running, a sword descended from the sky. This sword was a gigantic sword, and it directly slammed into the giant's head. The speed of the sword wasn't fast, but in an instant, the giant's incomparably huge body disintegrated, turning into huge rocks and turning into a mountain range. The strength contained within this sword is far beyond millions and millions of Qin Wentian's heart trembled. He closed his eyes and once again immersed himself in the dreamland, trying to comprehend the might of the gigantic sword. If it's a spear, it would be the same. That's the power of the earth, Qin Wentian mumbled. After which, he placed his palms on the mountain rampart once more. Another beam of sword light appeared as he took another step forward. Behind him on the mountain peak, the spectators all had looks of amazement on their faces when they saw Qin Wentian taking 2 steps forward. Junior brother is truly powerful. He actually managed to comprehend 2 sword strikes. Lin Shuai stared in the direction of Qin Wentian as he sighed in admiration. It's just 2 sword strikes. Back then, didn't senior brother also easily comprehend the first 7 sword strikes? These 7 shouldn't be too difficult. Yi Lingshuang faintly commented. Lin Shuai laughed. But my speed of comprehending the sword strikes is still inferior to junior brother Qin. How many sword strikes do you guys think junior brother Qin can comprehend today? Looking at his speed, his comprehension abilities shouldn't be weak. Maybe he can be like those disciples with high comprehension abilities, comprehending 7 sword strikes in one go. But after the 7th sword strike, it won't be so easy to comprehend any other sword strikes. Yi Lingshuang spoke. Lu Yun, who was at the side, also nodded his head. Back then, Li Hanyu comprehended 7 sword strikes in one go. After that, she used a total of 3 days to comprehend the 8th sword strike. As for the 9th sword strike, I heard that she used 7 days to comprehend it. Being able to comprehend the 9th sword strike, Li Hanyu's comprehension abilities must be extremely high. Maybe she might be able to comprehend the 14th sword strike within a year. Lin Shuai glanced at Li Hanyu's silhouette. This female's talent was extraordinary. She should be able to comprehend the 14th sword strike within a year. He comprehended the 3rd sword strike. How fast? At this moment, Lin Shuai's eyes gleamed with sharpness. Qin Wentian effortlessly comprehended the 3rd sword strike. Maybe junior brother Qin will not only comprehend 7 sword strikes today. Jiang Huai, how many sword strikes do you think he can comprehend? Yi Lingshuang asked the skinny Jiang Huai. Jiang Huai's comprehension abilities were also extremely impressive. I don't know, but he should be able to comprehend the record of 7 sword strikes. Jiang Huai faintly replied. As they were conversing, Qin Wentian had already comprehended the 4th sword strike. Momentarily, the gazes of many were attracted to Qin Wentian. How fast he's already comprehended the 4th sword strike. The record for the 7th sword strike was 2 hours. If this continues on, he should be able to comprehend the 7th sword strike very soon. Someone had a look of amazement on his face. This young man brought by Lin Shuai seemed to be extraordinary. It's already the 5th sword strike. How can he be so fast? The crowd exclaimed in shock. Qin Wentian had already taken 5 steps, causing 5 beams of sword light to appear. This meant that he had already comprehended 5 sword strikes. Awesome! Lin Shuai's eyes gleamed with surprise. The last 2 sword strikes are more difficult. I'm afraid it won't be so easy for him to comprehend them, someone stated. However, as the sound of that person's voice faded, Qin Wentian had already taken the 6th step. This meant that he had comprehended 6 sword strikes. How can this be? Is this luck? The person who spoke earlier had a depressed look on his face. He had just made a prediction when he was slapped in the face. This caused many to look at him in disdain. He's going to break the record. Someone spoke. I don't believe that he can comprehend this sword strike so quickly. That person spoke again. And as expected this time around, Qin Wentian paused for a period of time, standing there and comprehending. Haha, as expected, he can't do it anymore. That person laughed. He glanced at the people around him, only to see that the people around him all had strange expressions on their faces. After that, he turned his head back only to see a resplendent beam of light flashing past. Qin Wentian had already taken the 7th step. At the instant he took the 7th step, Qin Wentian's body was enveloped by a dazzling radiance. It was as though he was wearing a halo of light, causing others to admire him. In the air above his head, the whistling of swords could be heard unceasingly. He broke the record. The crowd stared at Qin Wentian as shock filled their hearts. Who would have thought that a new disciple would be able to break the record of comprehending the first 7 sword strikes? Lin Shuai had a smile on his face. No wonder the martial ancestor wanted them to bring Qin Wentian over. Seems like the martial ancestor could already tell that Qin Wentian was extraordinary. Their efforts in coming to the Xian King city weren't in vain. So what if he broke the record? I'm afraid he won't be able to comprehend the 8th sword strike. Someone spoke unconvinced. Who would have thought that a new disciple would actually break the record? Who knows? Maybe there will be a good show to watch. There were also people who were filled with admiration as they laughed. From afar, several silhouettes sped over. Evidently, they were startled by the whistling of swords and knew that someone from the sword hut had broken the record. The 8th sword strike isn't so easy to comprehend. Yi Lingshuang faintly spoke. She glanced at little rascal in her embrace, whose eyes were wide open as he stared at Qin Wentian. She couldn't help but curse in her heart. If that lecherous fellow like Lu Yun really had such talent, then the heavens really didn't have eyes. Not only that, her senior brother Lin Shuai still regarded him so highly. If Qin Wentian knew that he was framed by little rascal and was labeled as a lecherous fellow, he would definitely be so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. Senior sister Yi, why is he lecherous? Did he take advantage of you? Someone teased. Momentarily, Yi Lingshuang's countenance turned cold as she swept her gaze over to that person. Are you looking for a beating? I don't dare. That person laughed. However, very swiftly after, there were many rumors about Qin Wentian, a new disciple of the battle sword sect, breaking the record of comprehending the first 7 sword strikes. Not only that, he was also a lecherous fellow who dared to disrespect Yi Lingshuang the moment he joined the battle sword sect. The pitiful Qin Wentian didn't even know that his reputation had already been ruined. At this moment, he came before another diagram on the mountain rampart. This time around it was still the image of a great rock soaring through the 9 heavens, and it was still a sword strike. However, this sword strike was different from the first one. As the sword light descended, Qin Wentian could see several streams of sword light lacerating everything in their path. In an instant the great rock was actually shattered into pieces. How is this possible? Qin Wentian's heart trembled. How could the will of the mandate of wind reach such a level? Qin Wentian was stunned. He once again entered the dreamscape to comprehend. That majestic aura unceasingly manifested before him. Yet he discovered that no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't recreate the scene in the outside world. He had no idea how that sword strike was born, hence, he was unable to recreate it. I must be able to find the reason. Qin Wentian scrutinized the sword strike on the mountain rampart. That sword that descended along with the wind seemed to have manifested several streams of wind energy that enveloped the great rock. As the sword slashed down, the great rock was instantly shattered into pieces. It was extremely hard to tell what kind of energy was used to achieve this. Qin Wentian's countenance changed unceasingly as he sank into contemplation. In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed. This caused many in the crowd to laugh. It seemed like Qin Wentian had no way to comprehend this sword strike. How can the 8th sword strike be so easily comprehended? Yi Lingshuang faintly stated. The 8th sword strike was extremely difficult. I understand. At this moment, a bolt of lightning flashed through Qin Wentian's mind as a hint of comprehension appeared in his mind. It was naturally impossible to fuse a single mandate with a sword. But what if there was another type of mandate that could be fused? This is the power born from the fusion of wind and rain. Qin Wentian's eyes shone with a resplendent light. He stretched out his hand and placed it on the mountain rampart as a diagram appeared in his mind. Instantly, the wind and rain howled as the heavens and earth changed color. Qin Wentian took the 8th step, and in that instant, the countenances of everyone on the mountain peak changed as their eyes gleamed with sharpness. Comprehending the 8th sword strike. Chapter 520. The 8th sword strike. Comprehend. On the mountain peak, countless gazes turned to that unfamiliar young man. The radiance radiating from this young man seemed to have stolen away Li Hanyu's radiance. Li Hanyu comprehending the 9th sword strike was already considered not bad. However, the first time this young man comprehended the 8th sword strike, he broke the record of the first 7 sword strikes. And now, he even comprehended the 8th sword strike in such a short period of time. How inconceivable! Yi Lingshuang's beautiful eyes flickered. Earlier, she said that the 8th sword strike wouldn't be so easy to comprehend. After which, Qin Wentian actually comprehended it, causing her to be dumbfounded. She cursed in a low voice. Comprehending swords has nothing to do with one's cultivation base. I didn't expect this lecherous fellow to have such capabilities, to actually be able to comprehend the 8th sword strike in such a short period of time. Senior, could it be that you secretly told him the secret to comprehending swords? The path of comprehending swords requires one to comprehend it on their own. Even if I told him, it's useless if he didn't comprehend it himself. Lin Shuai explained. Junior sister, don't have any bad opinions about junior brother Qin. After which, he shook his head with a bitter smile. No matter how he looked at it, Qin Wentian didn't seem like a lecherous fellow. Instead, he was tricked by his pet. The others were also discussing. Qin Wentian had already comprehended the 8th sword strike. In that case, would he be able to comprehend the 9th sword strike today? After the 7th sword strike, each sword strike represented a different path. The 8th to 14th sword strikes were all exceedingly difficult to comprehend. Maybe luck played a role in this sword strike. If he can comprehend another sword strike, I'll believe that his comprehension abilities are truly extraordinary. Someone stated, causing many to agree. If he can comprehend the 9th sword strike, he would be able to catch up to junior sister Li. Right now, Qin Wentian was only a step behind Li Hanyu. Before his eyes, another diagram appeared. This diagram was extremely similar to the one he comprehended earlier. A great rock soared through the skies, and with a single sword strike, the great rock perished. This extremely similar sword strike caused Qin Wentian to furrow his brows. It's almost the same as the one earlier. Qin Wentian mused. However, he understood that it was impossible for these two swords to be exactly the same. They walked different paths, yet they achieved the same effect. Raising his head, Qin Wentian looked at the thatched cottage in front of him. The cottage was still faintly discernible, as if it was very far away. What sort of character was the founder of the battle sword sect? This is just the 9th sword strike, yet it's already so profound. The wills of his mandates fused together, creating a brand new path of cultivation. Each and every sword strike represents a different path. This ancient path is like a path leading to the heavens. At this moment, Qin Wentian's heart was filled with reverence. He guessed that the founder of the battle sword sect must have reached an unimaginable realm. This ancient path was one that no one in the entire battle sword sect could complete, not even the sword sovereigns of the 9 mountains. Once, there was an ancestor of the battle sword sect who almost completed the ancient path, becoming invincible in the battle sword sect. From this, one could see how powerful the founder was. Most probably, he was in existence like a sword immortal, able to dominate the heavens with his sword. As he thought of this, Qin Wentian scrutinized this sword strike in detail. 2 hours later, he finally discovered that there was a slight difference between this sword strike and the previous one. That sword strike earlier, when the sword descended, the wind was akin to silk threads, carrying with it an unparalleled might, directly slashing the great rock into pieces. At that instant, Qin Wentian thought of the scene of wind and rain intersecting with each other. The cold wind mixed with the torrential downpour, and if it was magnified infinitely, coupled with the might of the sword, it would be possible to create a scene where the great rock was slain. Hence, he was able to comprehend that sword strike earlier. However, this sword strike was slightly different. Although the sword might was the same, at the instant the sword landed, there was a surge of destructive energy that directly caused the great rock's body to explode, completely destroying it. Are all the wills of mandates in the world able to fuse together? Qin Wentian was thinking that the founder left behind the sword comprehension grass hut because he wanted to tell the later generations about the ancient path leading to the heavens, telling them about the path of cultivation in the future. All wills of mandates were able to fuse together with everything else. And after fusing together, although the might would be even more terrifying, it would be extremely hard to find the shadow of the previous mandates. What is a constellation? Is it formed from the fusion of wills of mandates? Qin Wentian mused. If it was a celestial phenomenon ascendant trying to comprehend this sword strike, it would definitely be easier because their understanding of the martial Tao would be deeper. Qin Wentian placed his hand on the mountain rampart. Instantly, a beam of sword light shot up to the skies, causing the mountain rampart to dissipate. Qin Wentian mumbled, "This sword strike contains the essence of wind and thunder within it." As the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian stepped out. The ninth sword strike comprehended. Qin Wentian was thinking that the fusion of wind and thunder would form a terrifying energy. It was just that the sword had become a medium to unleash their might. Because back then the founder was a sword immortal, he used the sword as a medium. My current halberd arts, when I strike out with my halberd, wouldn't that be the same as the pulsation of energy? Faintly, there's also a trace of the will of the mandate of Great Earth within, granting me an even more terrifying destructive might. This path of comprehending swords is the path I will walk on in the future. Qin Wentian sighed. The sword comprehension grass hut left behind by the founder didn't have any cultivation arts nor innate techniques. Yet it was a path leading to the great Tao. If you cultivate the sword, using the sword as a medium, that would be the path of a sword immortal. The founder of the battle sword sect could be said to have put in a lot of effort. This sword comprehension grass hut was a supreme treasure, allowing the disciples to comprehend it themselves instead of being taught by others. This way, the disciples would be able to comprehend it even more deeply. Qin Wentian had already completed the ninth step. Beside him, there was another silhouette. This silhouette was an absolute beauty clad in robes made of phoenix feathers, exuding a heroic aura, causing people to want to stare up at her. This person was none other than Li Hanyu. Li Hanyu turned her gaze over, glancing at Qin Wentian beside her as a bright light flashed in her eyes. There was actually someone who had comprehended the ninth sword strike just like her. Not only that, this person was also very young. She had just joined the sect not long ago, and there were many disciples in the battle sword sect that she didn't recognize. In addition, she had no interest in knowing them. Hence, she didn't know that Qin Wentian had just joined the sect. She merely asked, "Have you comprehended the ninth sword strike before?" Her voice was gentle yet filled with sharpness, giving off a sense of dominance. At this moment, Qin Wentian also glanced at Li Hanyu. On the way here, he had also met a few people, but he didn't interact with them. This Li Hanyu exuded a domineering aura and an outstanding countenance. Even he couldn't help but to silently praise her. If it wasn't for Qingqing and Qing, being by his side, he would most probably be in awe of her beauty as well. Upon seeing Qin Wentian sizing her up, Li Hanyu coldly snorted, as hints of disdain could be seen in her eyes. These young men were all like this. They all had the same expression whenever they saw her. "I haven't," Qin Wentian casually replied. After which, he turned his gaze away as calm as ever. His words caused a cold smile to appear in Li Hanyu's eyes. This person was truly impressive. He managed to instantly change his expression back to normal when he sensed her dissatisfaction, concealing it extremely well. However, these young men had used all sorts of methods to get close to her. How could they hide such insignificant tricks from her? The difficulty of this sword strike isn't something you can comprehend. Li Hanyu faintly spoke, exuding an air of arrogance. Qin Wentian frowned, but soon after, his brows relaxed. He ignored her and continued to stare at the diagram on the mountain rampart. A great rock soaring through the skies, breaking it with a single sword strike. This diagram was actually the exact same as the first sword strike. There were no flaws at all. In fact, compared to the eighth sword strike, This sword strike was even more similar to the first sword strike, causing him to feel as though he had returned to the time when he comprehended the first sword strike. Breaking it with a single sword strike like the wind, but how could it be exactly the same? This time around, Qin Wentian paused for 4 hours and was still unable to comprehend the ninth sword strike. This caused the spectators on the mountain peak to silently sigh. As expected, the difficulty of comprehending the 10th sword strike was even greater. Qin Wentian was able to comprehend the ninth sword strike. This had already caused many to be filled with admiration. His comprehension abilities must be extremely high. But for the 10th sword strike, even Li Hanyu couldn't comprehend it. Most probably, it would be extremely difficult for him to do so as well. Qin Wentian tried a few times, but all his attempts ended in failure. If he didn't comprehend it, his thoughts would fail and he wouldn't be able to comprehend the 10th sword strike. In the blink of an eye, the sky turned dark and bright again. A day had already passed, yet Qin Wentian and Li Hanyu were still standing there unmoving. Qin Wentian carefully thought back to the first 9 sword strikes he comprehended, and even peeked at the 10th sword strike in his dreamscape. He saw it clearly over and over again. Finally, at this moment, a hint of a smile appeared in Qin Wentian's eyes as he spoke in a low voice. I understand now. Li Hanyu's gaze flickered as she stared at Qin Wentian. She coldly laughed, boasting shamelessly. The difficulty of this sword strike was something she had a deep understanding of. It was simply too difficult to comprehend. Qin Wentian glanced at her as he smiled, causing people to feel as though they were bathing in the spring breeze. After which, he placed his palms on the mountain wall and communicated with his thoughts. In an instant, a resplendent light flashed as a sword strike pierced through the heavens. The 10th sword strike was comprehended. Qin Wentian took a step forward, vanishing from Li Hanyu's sight. How is this possible? Li Hanyu had a look of astonishment on her face. She hadn't even comprehended the 10th sword strike, yet someone had already comprehended it before her. Thinking back to the smile on Qin Wentian's face when he left, Li Hanyu mused, could it be that this young man is extremely scheming? He had clearly comprehended the 10th sword strike before, but now he's intentionally doing this to attract my attention, wanting me to look at him in a different light? Li Hanyu didn't think too much about it. She continued staring at the mountain wall. No matter what, Qin Wentian had succeeded in comprehending the 10th sword strike. How could she allow herself to be trapped here forever? The spectators on the mountain peak couldn't help but to exclaim in admiration when they saw Qin Wentian comprehending the 10th sword strike. Right now, there was no longer anyone who doubted Qin Wentian's comprehension abilities. He arrived after Li Hanyu, yet he was the first to comprehend the 10th sword strike. Qin Wentian silently sighed in his heart. The 10th sword strike was indeed extremely difficult to comprehend. It was exactly the same as the 8th sword strike, both containing the mandate of wind and rain. It was simply unimaginable. Every type of mandate has different transformations. For wind, the first mandate is the speed of wind, while the second mandate is the lacerating wind. After a mandate reaches the perfection boundary, there would be many transformations, allowing it to fuse with other mandates, resulting in different transformations. Qin Wentian couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If 2 people cultivated the same mandates and fused them together, there was a possibility that their paths would be different. Just like the 8th and 10th sword strikes. The path ahead is still very long. Qin Wentian sighed deeply. Right now, he hadn't even comprehended a single second-level mandate to the perfection boundary, let alone fusing them together. Not only that, there was a possibility that his future path would require him to fuse multiple mandates together. Even he had no way to predict where he would go in the future. This 10th sword strike caused Qin Wentian to have some sort of comprehension. Next, within 3 days, he consecutively comprehended 4 sword strikes, causing a terrifying storm of swords to arise on the mountain path of the grass hut. Qin Wentian broke another record, causing the entire gorge to be filled with towering sword might. The spectators stared at the young man who was bathed in the radiance of the sword, incomparably resplendent. In fact, it was as though there were countless pairs of eyes in the skies watching everything that happened below. Qin Wentian in 5 days comprehended 14 sword strikes. Chapter 521. 14 sword strikes. Many people on the mountain peak were stunned. Who was this young man exactly? He actually managed to comprehend 14 sword strikes in a short span of 5 days, and his cultivation base wasn't that strong. Yi Lingshuang was completely speechless now. Staring at the silhouette of Qin Wentian, her lips twitched as she glared at little rascal in her arms. Little rascal's eyes were wide open as it stared ahead. How awesome! Awesome, you little lecher! Yi Lingshuang smacked little rascal on its head, causing little rascal to glare at her in dissatisfaction. What are you looking at? Do you think you can rebel against me? Yi Lingshuang spoke in disdain. To bully me. Little rascal glared at Yi Lingshuang with a baleful look on its face, causing a look of satisfaction to appear on Yi Lingshuang's face. Little rascal, do you think you can rebel against me? But in the next instant, her expression completely vanished as her face turned red. She stared fixedly at little rascal in her arms, only to see little rascal glaring at her angrily as its little claws actually reached out to grab her. You! Yi Lingshuang screamed in agony. The gazes of the spectators all turned to her. Yi Lingshuang's reaction was also extremely fast. She immediately hugged little rascal tightly, not allowing others to see this embarrassing scene. Junior sister, what's wrong? Lu Yun curiously stared at Yi Lingshuang as he asked. Nothing. Yi Lingshuang's face was slightly red, causing her beauty to be even more alluring. She shook her head unceasingly, but in her heart, she hated Qin Wentian to the core. Qin Wentian was actually a lecher who was so adorable, simply bewitching the hearts of others. Lu Yun was somewhat bewildered. He stared at Yi Lingshuang's chest only to see little rascal doing his best to squeeze out. An innocent look could be seen in its eyes. What are you looking at? Yi Lingshuang angrily roared, causing Lu Yun to shiver. He hurriedly shifted his gaze away, pretending that nothing had happened. He then spoke in a low voice, Junior brother Qin is truly awesome. He actually managed to comprehend 14 sword strikes. Upon hearing Lu Yun's nonsense, Yi Lingshuang gritted her teeth. Seems like the two of them were birds of the same feather. Junior brother Qin is indeed awesome. However, I'm afraid he has no way to comprehend the 15th sword strike. In our battle sword sect, there hasn't been anyone who could comprehend it before. Lin Shui spoke. Only then did Yi Lingshuang stop speaking. She turned her gaze to Qin Wentian. At this moment, Qin Wentian arrived before another mountain rampart. There was a diagram on it as well. Violent ancient demons were howling madly, sweeping through the heavens and earth, wanting to devour everything, annihilating all lives. These ancient demons had evil dragons and evil phoenixes, causing the lives of the living to be plunged into misery and suffering. However, at this moment, a sword slashed out, landing right in the center of the mountain rampart. In an instant, with the sword as the center, everything was annihilated. Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. The might of this sword strike was simply too terrifying. As the sword descended, everything was destroyed. This time around, he couldn't see any will of mandates contained within. He could only feel the destructive might of the sword strike. Is this the sublimation of the fusion of the wills of mandates? Qin Wentian murmured, sighing in his heart. He had no idea what this sword strike was. He couldn't see through it at all. For the previous 14 sword strikes, he could sense the existence of the will of mandates. But for this sword strike, he couldn't sense it at all. Maybe this is the true perfect fusion of the wills of mandates, giving birth to a brand new type of power, a truly terrifying power. Qin Wentian murmured. But even so, his eyes flickered with determination. He wanted to comprehend this sword strike and see through the profoundness within. Closing his eyes, he forgot everything. In his dreamscape, there was only this sword strike. For the sake of comprehending this sword strike, Qin Wentian didn't rest for 7 days. But after 7 days, he could only bitterly smile and shake his head, knowing that he was powerless. Qin Wentian's personality was stubborn. No matter what he did, he would always be like this. Back then, he dared to enter the Pill Emperor Hall alone. This was a testament to his character. However, it wasn't that he didn't know his limits. He couldn't see through the 15th sword strike at all. It was impossible for him to comprehend it. His cultivation base was still insufficient, at least for now. Since this was the case, he could only give up. Turning around, Qin Wentian calmly walked back. He had no idea that he had broken 2 records. His countenance was extremely calm. Although his cultivation base didn't increase, he could faintly see the path ahead of him. Li Hanyu was still trying to comprehend the ninth sword strike. At this moment, a hint of comprehension flashed in her eyes as a smile appeared on her face. This sword strike was truly marvelous, but in the end it was still comprehended by her. However, at this moment, a silhouette appeared beside her. Li Hanyu stared at the returning Qin Wentian as she coldly laughed. Are you unable to comprehend any more sword strikes? Qin Wentian lightly nodded his head. He didn't say anything. Li Hanyu's countenance was filled with an innate arrogance. Most probably, her status was extraordinary, but this had nothing to do with him. Li Hanyu placed her palms on the illusory mountain rampart in front of her as a complacent expression appeared on her face. She stepped out, comprehending the 10th sword strike. Qin Wentian lightly shook his head as he left the grass hut. After which, he stared in the air, only to see that there were many silhouettes staring at him, causing Qin Wentian to feel bewildered. It seemed like there were many more people here compared to when he first entered the grass hut. Not only that, their gazes were all on him. His silhouette flickered as Qin Wentian soared through the air, arriving beside Lin Shuai as he asked, "Senior brother, what's wrong? You consecutively broke records, yet you're asking me what's wrong?" Lin Shuai laughed. Qin Wentian froze for a moment before a bitter smile appeared on his face. Seems like his comprehension speed was too fast, causing such a commotion. "I'll return this little lecture to you." Yi Lingshuang tossed little rascal over to Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian stared at her in bewilderment, only to see Yi Lingshuang glaring fiercely at him. "You have an innocent look in your eyes. To be able to nurture such a little lecher, I'm sure you're not a good person." Qin Wentian's face was filled with black lines as he stared at little rascal. What did this fellow do to attract such a strong resentment from Yi Lingshuang? Haha, junior brother Qin. Junior sister Lingshuang's words are always straightforward. Don't mind her, let's interact more in the future. I heard that you just arrived in the southern domain, so I'm afraid you don't know much about this place yet. If there's an opportunity, senior brother here will bring you around. Lu Yun shot a knowing look at Qin Wentian as he smiled. The fairies of the Neon Moon Inn and Lakeside Lodge are all extremely charming and talented. Junior brother, if there's an opportunity, you must definitely go and take a look. Yi Lingshuang glared at Lu Yun, while Qin Wentian had an awkward smile on his face. However, a voice drifted over from the air. "You bastard! You're here to lead your junior brother astray again." As the sound of the voice faded, an old man appeared in the air. This man had a smile on his face, exuding an extremely amiable aura. He stared at Qin Wentian and laughed. "Little fellow, I'm Lu Yun's master. Are you interested in becoming my disciple? How can a disciple taught by you have any future prospects? Little fellow, follow me." A black-robed silhouette appeared, standing in the air. This person exuded an imposing aura even without being angry, exuding a powerful aura. The experts on this mountain are as common as the clouds. Why is there a need to snatch people away? Just follow me. Another expert appeared, causing many to be stunned. After which, another 5 to 6 people appeared. All of them were elder-level characters of the Battle Sword sect. All of them wanted to become Qin Wentian's master, causing many to be filled with envy. Such treatment was extremely rare. Han Yu is this seat's disciple and has already comprehended 10 sword strikes. You were able to comprehend 14 within 5 days. From this, one can see that your comprehension abilities are extremely high. Even if you are lacking in other areas, this seat will still help you catch up to others. If your performance is outstanding, this seat will personally guide you. From afar, an ethereal voice drifted over, causing everyone to be startled. Those elder-level characters all had bitter smiles on their faces. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness actually spoke. Most probably, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was paying attention to Li Hanyu and discovered that Qin Wentian had comprehended the sword strikes. The Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was a female, yet the arrogance in her voice was shocking. Although Qin Wentian hadn't seen her in person, he knew that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was an extraordinary character. Just a single voice was enough to cause the entire mountain to fall silent. Li Hanyu's silhouette flickered as she stepped out from the grass hut. Her countenance changed. This was the voice of her master. Her master was actually inviting someone to join her sect? Turning her gaze over, a strange light flickered in her eyes when she saw Qin Wentian. Back then, she had taken the initiative to join the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, and because of her outstanding performance, she was accepted as a personal disciple. Junior brother, it's the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Lu Yun's expression turned solemn as he reminded. From the seriousness in his voice, one could tell that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was extremely powerful. Qin Wentian glanced in the direction of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness as he replied, "Many thanks for Senior's kindness, but Junior has yet to make up his mind." As the sound of his voice faded, the crowd fell into silence. Never would they have imagined that Qin Wentian would directly reject her. All of them stared at him in bewilderment, as expected of someone who joined the Battle Sword sect. He had character to actually reject the invitation of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Li Hanyo's eyes flashed with coldness, feeling indignant in her heart. She had gone through untold hardships to become the personal disciple of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, and now the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness personally invited her, yet she was actually rejected. Rejected. A towering might envelop the heavens and earth. Evidently, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness also didn't expect that Qin Wentian would reject her. Very good. A voice rang out, causing the entire space to tremble. It's good to have character, but you have to weigh your own weight and conduct yourself well. As the sound of that voice faded, the might of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness vanished. What sort of character was the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness? It was already extremely rare for her to take the initiative to invite Qin Wentian. But given her status, she naturally wouldn't go so far as to make things difficult for Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's countenance was exceedingly calm. Just from the tone of her voice, he could tell that the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was extremely domineering. Naturally, she had the qualifications to do so. After all, she was an elite adept of a generation, the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. However, the domineering tone of her voice made Qin Wentian extremely unhappy. Since he didn't like it, he would reject it. There was nothing strange about this. This was just like what Lin Shuai had said: when doing things, follow your heart. Yi Lingshuang also had a new level of respect for Qin Wentian. Not everyone would have such courage in daring to reject the invitation of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness. Lin Shuai had a smile on his face, as a hint of admiration could be seen on his face. His martial ancestor didn't personally act against Qin Wentian, choosing to borrow the strength of the Battle Sword sect instead. Could it be that Qin Wentian had also rejected him before? However, this thought only flashed past his mind for an instant. He didn't dare to think too much about it. Chapter 522. After Qin Wentian rejected the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness, he naturally understood how high the prestige of the Plum Mountain Sword Sovereigness was. Shaking his head, he turned to Lin Shuai. "Senior brother, let me find a place to stay first." Qin Wentian spoke. "I'm sure. You and junior sister Qing can choose a place to stay first. After that, you can follow me to the first mountain." Lin Shuai had a smile on his face. Since he had already brought Qin Wentian here, he should greet his master first. After all, Qin Wentian was someone his master wanted. Sure. Qin Wentian had no objections. The few of them then soared into the air. Li Hanyu stepped out and landed on the mountain peak. Instantly, several extraordinary young men appeared beside her. For a moment, Li Hanyu was like the moon surrounded by stars. How many swords did this person comprehend? Li Hanyu asked. "Junior sister, this person just joined the sect and he managed to comprehend 14 swords within 5 days. Person spoke. Momentarily, Li Hanyu's expression froze as the pride in her heart suffered a heavy blow. Right now, even she had only comprehended 10 swords. "Junior sister, there's no need to worry. Comprehending swords is related to one's luck and comprehension ability. It doesn't represent one's talent." That person consoled. Li Hanyu nodded her head lightly. "Don't worry, I Li Hanyu am not someone who would belittle myself. But since this person was able to comprehend 14 swords, he can already be considered extraordinary. I wonder how high his combat prowess and talent are exactly." Qin Wentian and Qing first found a cultivation paradise on the first mountain below Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. The distance between the two cultivation paradises wasn't too far. It was quiet and beautiful. After that, they came before an ancient mountain peak. There was a winding ancient path leading to the top of the mountain, resembling a stairway to the heavens. Beside the path there was a waterfall splashing water everywhere. This place truly resembled a paradise in the mortal world. Qing and Little Rascal didn't come with them. Qin Wentian followed Lin Shuai and the others here. Inclining his head, he stared at the heavenly stairway of the ancient mountain. Qin Wentian ascended the stairway step by step. Lin Shuai and the others all had expressions of respect on their faces. At the edge of the waterfall, there were many guards with ancient swords on their backs. When they saw Lin Shuai and the others, they would nod their heads slightly. An instant later, only Lin Shuai could continue ascending. Yi Lingshuang and the others remained at the waist of the stairway. This was the place where the Sword Sovereign taught his disciples. Without their orders, no one was allowed to ascend. However, Lin Shuai actually brought Qin Wentian up, causing strange expressions to appear on the faces of Yi Lingshuang and the others. Senior brother Lin Shuai actually directly brought Qin Wentian to meet with the sect leader. What was the background of this Qin Wentian? Junior brother is back. When Qin Wentian and Lin Shuai arrived at the entrance of the heavenly stairway, they saw a maiden clad in white walking out. This maiden had a neat and tidy appearance, and although she couldn't be considered very beautiful, her facial features were delicate and dignified, giving off a faint sense of majesty. This is my sixth senior sister, Song Yu. Lin Shuai introduced. Senior sister. Qin Wentian called out. Most probably, this maiden was also a disciple under the Sword Sovereign. Such a young celestial phenomenon ascendant would definitely be a character at the peak of Granxia. The world outside was truly powerful. Junior brother Wentian, master is already waiting for you. The white-robed maiden smiled at Qin Wentian. Her smile caused people to feel extremely comfortable, as though it was made by nature itself. Qin Wentian felt somewhat bewildered. The sect leader of the Battle Sword sect was personally waiting for him? With bewilderment in his heart, he followed the white-robed maiden into the great hall. There were several disciples of the Battle Sword sect here, and as for the front there was a person casually standing there, akin to a supreme sword. Although he didn't exude any aura, he gave off a terrifying pressure to Qin Wentian, causing him to feel as though it was extremely difficult to take a single step forward. Junior pays my respects to the sect leader. Qin Wentian could guess that this person was none other than the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian. I've already heard about you from them. Release your martial soul and will of mandates for me to see. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian smiled as he stared at Qin Wentian. Although he didn't exude any aura, Qin Wentian was still able to calmly face the pressure emanating from him. This could already be considered rare. At the instant the sound of his voice faded, Qin Wentian felt all the pressure on him vanishing. It was as though the person standing in front of him was an extremely ordinary mortal. Able to retract and retract as I please, Qin Wentian knew that Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's cultivation had already reached another level. Now that he was in a place like the Battle Sword sect, it was no longer something Granxia could compare to. He didn't have too many misgivings and released his astral souls and will of mandates at the same time. The resplendent astral souls illuminated the entire great hall. The flickering astral souls were so blinding that they could pierce the eyes of those who looked at them. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's eyes abruptly erupted with the resplendent light. Even with his state of heart, he actually couldn't control his aura at this instant, causing the entire great hall to be filled with a stifling pressure, albeit only for an instant. Enough. The light in Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's eyes gradually retracted. Yet his heart trembled. As the sect leader of the Battle Sword sect, how many geniuses had he seen before? He had even met some heaven-defying geniuses who intentionally delayed their cultivation to increase their perception, allowing them to condense an astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer when they condensed their second astral soul. However, this was the first time he met someone who condensed an astral soul from the fifth heavenly layer as their first astral soul. Not only that, he heard that Qin Wentian came from the desolate land of Granxia. This was simply unimaginable. Lin Shuai, Song Yu and the rest were all stunned as their hearts pounded. How strong was the perception of this junior brother of theirs? Force Dream Demon Sword. The attacking power of your mandates should be extremely strong. If you use this combination well, your attacks would definitely be at the peak. At that instant, Sword Sovereign Ling Tian had already sensed Qin Wentian's mandates. Force, Demon, and Sword, all of them had the attribute of attack. Dream, on the other hand, had the attribute of bewilderment. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly, but he didn't reply. Force, Demon, and Sword can allow your attacks to unceasingly multiply, allowing you to walk towards the limit. Firstly, you have to reach the perfection boundary of your mandates. Secondly, you can continue to increase the strength of your fleshly body. The strength of your fleshly body is the foundation. Once your foundation is raised, when you use your mandates to multiply your attacks, the effects would be even more obvious. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian explained. Qin Wentian naturally understood this logic. If his physical strength grew stronger, his mandate of force and mandate of demon would be able to multiply his attacks unceasingly, and the effects would be even more terrifying. However, in the past, when his cultivation base was raised, his fleshly body would also be strengthened. The Fiend transformation art had also strengthened his physique, but it was already extremely difficult to raise his foundation. In addition, you've already been to the grass hut. You should know that even if it's just a simple fusion of mandates, there would still be unfathomable effects. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian spoke to Qin Wentian. Junior has already tried it before. When I infused different mandates into my halberd arts, the might of my attacks would indeed be much stronger, although this fusion is only at the simplest level. Qin Wentian replied. From the 15th sword strike onwards, only then would one truly enter a deeper level of fusion. And right now, he had only comprehended the 1st to the 7th sword strike. The sword was merely a vessel. No wonder you can comprehend the 14th sword strike. However, don't stray into the wrong path. The reason why everything in the grass hut is based on the sword is because the founder was a sword immortal. Not only that, the sword can easily fuse the mandates of wind, rain, thunder, and lightning into it. However, different mandates can be used as a vessel. For example, your Heavenly Hammer Astral Soul, Mandate of Force, and Mandate of Great Earth are much easier to fuse. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's words were extremely casual, causing Qin Wentian to unknowingly feel a sense of closeness. Many thanks for Senior's guidance. Qin Wentian understood that Sword Sovereign Ling Tian was worried that Qin Wentian would stray into the wrong path of the sword. You have to rely on yourself to walk your own path. Predecessors can only give you some pointers. Ultimately, how far you can walk on your own path will depend on your own talent, hard work, and luck. There's no need for you to take me as your master, but if you have any questions, you can look for me. First, follow Lin Shui to the Gravity Mountain to cultivate. As for your little girlfriend, I will introduce her to a good teacher. If she is unwilling, I won't force her. Okay. Qin Wentian felt joy in his heart. He didn't expect Sword Sovereign Ling Tian to treat him so generously. He felt extremely grateful in his heart. As for Sword Sovereign Ling Tian's misunderstanding of as his girlfriend, he didn't bother to explain. Junior brother, let's go. Lin Shui smiled. Qin Wentian bowed to Sword Sovereign Ling Tian before he left with Lin Shui. Sword Sovereign Ling Tian stared at the departing back of Qin Wentian as a smile appeared on his face. He silently mused that his master's judgment was indeed extremely sharp. He would naturally do his best to send this young man into the battle sword sect. Not only that, he had to do so in a dazzling manner. If not, it would be hard for him to gain recognition. This was also the reason why he didn't allow Qin Wentian to take him as his master. Junior brother Qin, you are truly astonishing. After exiting the Great Hall, Lin Shui spoke. The combination of Qin Wentian's astral souls was simply too shocking. Qin Wentian smiled, but he didn't reply. Yi Lingshuang then asked, Senior, what's wrong? Nothing much. Lin Shui smiled and shook his head. Master wants me to bring junior brother Qin to the Gravity Mountain. Yi Lingshuang screamed while Lu Yun rolled his eyes. Both of them tactfully didn't say anything, causing Qin Wentian to be extremely curious about this place. The Gravity Mountain was located in a ravine within a mountain range. At the sides of the ravine, there were several ink-colored boulders that gave off a heavy feeling. There were also ancient trees that were incomparably thick and sturdy, so thick that even 10 people wouldn't be able to wrap their arms around them. This is the Gravity Mountain? Qin Wentian stared at the ravine ahead as he asked. Yes. Junior brother, the boulders below weigh over 10,000 jin. You have to move them all to the other side of the ravine before moving them back. As for those ancient trees, you have to use an axe and chop down 100 of them before you can move them out. Lin Shuai explained. How difficult can that be? Qin Wentian laughed. Yi Lingshuang, who was behind him, had a strange expression on her face. In that case you can leave now. Lin Shuai smiled. Right. Qin Wentian nodded. Stepping out, he flew towards the ravine. However, when he arrived in the airspace above the ravine, Qin Wentian's countenance abruptly changed. A terrifying pressure bore down on him, causing his body to plummet downwards. How heavy! Qin Wentian's countenance drastically changed. With a thunderous boom, his body directly slammed into the ground. Even his legs found it hard to stand straight, and he felt as though his entire body was falling apart. His entire body felt extremely uncomfortable, and his internal organs felt as though they were collapsing. Junior brother Qin, cultivate well. Lin Shuai smiled. After speaking, he turned and departed. Yi Lingshuang had a complacent expression on her face, while Ling Yun looked at Qin Wentian with sympathy. Enjoy yourself and don't forget to move the boulders and chop down the trees. How can it be so terrifying? Qin Wentian straightened his back. He only felt an extremely powerful force acting on his entire body. Even the astral energy in his body couldn't circulate smoothly. He suddenly thought of something. When a type of energy reached its limit, it would undergo a qualitative change. This gravity domain had reached its limit. Boom! With every step he took, the earth rumbled. Qin Wentian glanced at the gigantic boulders, before glancing at the ancient trees. He felt an impulse to cry. Chapter 523. A month later, in the canyon above the gravity mountain, Lu Yun sat there drinking wine. Occasionally, he would glance down and see a young man clad in thin robes sprinting with all his might. This fellow's adaptability is truly strong. Junior sister Lingshuang, do you want a sip? Lu Yun stretched his wine gourd towards Yi Lingshuang, only to see Yi Lingshuang glaring at him. It's fine if you don't want to drink. Why must you be so fierce? No matter what, you are still a princess. Lu Yun kept his wine gourd, only to see Yi Lingshuang's countenance turning heavy as sadness flickered in her eyes. Lu Yun. Zhang Huai, who was standing behind, coldly spoke. Lu Yun continued drinking as he faintly replied, Junior sister, calm down a little. I didn't say anything wrong. I know. Yi Lingshuang softly replied, her words causing Lu Yun's countenance to falter. After which, he joked, why don't Junior sister marry me? I will definitely take good care of you. Scram. Yi Lingshuang cursed. This bastard's skin was truly thick. Sigh, seems like I still have to go to the lakeside lodge to look for Fairy Z. I'll come back next month to visit him. Lu Yun turned and walked away in a carefree manner. Yi Lingshuang and Zhang Huai didn't leave. Yi Lingshuang stared at the sprinting Qin Wentian as she silently mused. What a strong adaptability, to be able to run at such a speed. When Qin Wentian first stepped into the Gravity Mountain Canyon, even walking was difficult. The gravity here was simply too terrifying. Only after an entire month did he slowly get used to it. Now he could rely on his own will and strength to run, unceasingly surpassing his own limits. At this moment, Qin Wentian walked to the side of a huge black boulder as he mumbled in a low voice, I wonder how heavy this boulder is. Qin Wentian circulated the astral energy in his body, as he infused his will into his arms. With a sudden burst of strength, rumbling sounds rang out as Qin Wentian lifted up a gigantic boulder. However, an instant later, a terrifying rumbling sound echoed out as the earth cracked apart. The gigantic boulder landed on the ground as Qin Wentian collapsed onto the ground, panting for breath. This boulder is only 5,000 jin, but that's in other places. The gravity here is 1,000 times stronger. Qin Wentian lamented in his heart. He couldn't even lift a single stone. Helplessly, he walked towards the direction of the forest, picked up the axe beside him, and chopped at the ancient tree. However, he discovered that the ancient tree only had a layer of skin broken. He couldn't help but lament in his heart. Although his strength was now very limited, this ancient tree was a bit too sturdy. Turning his head back, He glanced at the row of gigantic boulders. There seemed to be some smaller boulders as well. Walking over, he carried the smaller boulder in his arms and started to walk forward with great difficulty. Every step he took left a deep footprint on the ground, as though he had sunk into the ground. So heavy. Qin Wentian felt extremely depressed, but he could only grit his teeth and persevere. After walking over 10 steps, his entire body was already drenched in sweat, but he still gritted his teeth. This tempering exercise in the mountain of gravity allowed him to find the feeling he had when he first stepped on the path of cultivation. The most primitive feeling, constantly breaking through his limits, squeezing out all the power of his body, causing it to grow stronger. During this month he gradually got used to the terrifying gravity. This in itself was already a huge improvement. Qin Wentian silently tempered himself in the mountain of gravity. Occasionally, he would see others entering the mountain of gravity to temper themselves. 3 months later, he was finally able to lift a boulder, and at the same time, he wielded his axe, chopping down ancient trees. Every month, Lu Yun and Yi Lingshuang would come to visit him. Today, Qin Wentian was chopping trees again. Right now, every chop of his axe was extremely effortless, as though it was a habit. He tried to infuse his will of mandates into the axe, and every chop he chopped down would have a slight improvement. As time passed, this improvement would be magnified, allowing him to chop deeper into the tree. This fellow's improvement is so fast. Lu Yun and the others came again. They sat on the roof of the mountain of gravity and watched as Qin Wentian chopped down with his axe. Deep cracks actually appeared on the ancient trees, and after tens of chops, an ancient tree collapsed. This time around, Lu Yun didn't leave. He watched as Qin Wentian chopped down trees. Not even a day had passed, and Qin Wentian had already chopped down 100 trees. However, he didn't give up and continued chopping. Don't tell me he's preparing to chop down all the trees in the mountain of gravity? The elders in charge of planting trees would definitely feel heartache. Lu Yun mumbled. Lu Yun mumbled. Every single tree here was like a seed. It would allow the ancient trees to grow rapidly, allowing the disciples of the battle sword sect to chop them down. Why is it getting weaker and weaker? Why does it take so long to chop down a single tree? Lu Yun furrowed his brows, feeling somewhat puzzled. He's not using his will of mandates. He's using pure strength to chop down the trees. Yi Lingshuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun to blink. Yi Lingshuang. At this moment, a voice drifted over from afar. Yi Lingshuang turned her head only to see a silhouette walking over, causing a strange expression to appear on Yi Lingshuang's face. This was the disciple in charge of transmitting messages from the battle sword sect. What happened? Here's your letter. The other party passed the letter to Yi Lingshuang. Yi Lingshuang opened it and instantly felt her entire body turning cold. Her countenance turned ashen. Junior sister, what's wrong? Lu Yun asked seriously when he saw the expression on Yi Lingshuang's face. My father is heavily injured. His life is in danger. Yi Lingshuang spoke, her words causing Lu Yun's heart to tremble. He knew who Yi Lingshuang was. She was a princess of an ancient country, and her father was the emperor of a generation. This ancient country had existed for over 10,000 years, and was extremely powerful. The internal conflicts were extremely complicated, and Lu Yun faintly knew a little about it. Did the Violet Thunder sect interfere? Lu Yun asked. I don't know. Yi Lingshuang's countenance was still pale. Lu Yun spoke again. Let's report this to Master and see if there's a solution. There are also medical experts in the battle sword sect. Yi Lingshuang placed the letter down as she replied in a low voice. We've already invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Lu Yun's eyes flashed with sharpness as he continued. The newly promoted Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley has already broken through to a 5th-ranked Pill King not too long ago. Not only that, she has also obtained the true inheritance of the Medicine Sovereign. In the current younger generation of the Royal Sacred Region, she can be considered a legendary character. Since we've already invited her, there shouldn't be any problems. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was also a legendary character. It was said that back then when she was sent into the Medicine Sovereign Valley, she was on the verge of death. However, the identity of the person who sent her into the Medicine Sovereign Valley was unknown, and the Medicine Sovereign actually personally acted to save her. Not only that, the medicine sovereign used all of his effort to cleanse her marrows and reconstruct her life force. After that, he even imparted all of his knowledge to her, causing this holy maiden to soar up like a shooting star. Even the true name of the holy maiden of the medicine sovereign valley was unknown. They won't give up so easily. Yi Lingshuang's heart was in a mess, yet she didn't have the time to think too much. Right now she didn't know what to do. Let's look for senior brother and let him think of a solution. Let's go. Lu Yu knew that right now Yi Lingshuang's heart was in a mess. He instantly made his decision and brought Yi Lingshuang away. Yi Lingshuang's heart was still filled with sorrow. A heaven-shaking genius had appeared in the ancient country. From then on, the internal factions of the ancient country grew even more divided. Her elder brother, who was slightly older than her, had outstanding talent and was able to enter the Violet Thunder sect. He didn't even need to pass the examination and was directly sent to the Royal Sacred Sect. This was the promise of the Violet Thunder sect. And now what level had he grown to? All of this Qin Wentian had no idea. He was still chopping trees, and when he was tired, he would take a break before continuing to move the huge boulders. Right now he was more than willing to do these things and was extremely optimistic. Occasionally, he would gain some insights and practice his axe on the huge boulder, or brandish his heavenly hammer. Such days passed by extremely contentedly. Although his cultivation base didn't increase, he wasn't in a rush either. When the time comes, success will come naturally. Only with a solid foundation would one's combat prowess grow stronger. Another 2 days passed. Qin Wentian lay comfortably on the huge boulder. The sunlight cascaded down on him, illuminating the contours of his body. That was the beauty of strength. Right now, the terrifying gravitational force in the canyon gradually faded away. He knew that he was currently undergoing a baptism, and his physique was much stronger compared to before. Junior brother Qin. A voice interrupted Qin Wentian's beautiful dream. Opening his eyes, he saw Lin Shuai standing on top of the canyon. Senior brother. Qin Wentian sat up as he stared at Lin Shuai. What's wrong? The entire forest has been chopped down by you, yet you still don't want to come out? Lin Shuai glanced at the forest as his heart shuddered. This fellow was truly powerful. To think that he could adapt so quickly and even chop down the entire forest. Qin Wentian smiled. After which, he stomped on the ground and soared up into the air, landing at the edge of the canyon. At this instant, without the powerful gravitational force, Qin Wentian felt as though his entire body was as light as a feather. Such a feeling was simply too wonderful. Senior brother, why are you so free to come over? Qin Wentian laughed. Let me tell you something. Your senior sister Yi Lingshuang is the princess of an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. However, there are a few powerful kings in the Yi country. In addition, Yi Lingshuang has a cousin who is around the same age as her, and is a descendant of a king. His talent is unparalleled and he joined the Violet Thunder sect, causing the Yi clan's struggle for the throne to be extremely intense. Lin Shuai slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen as he instantly understood. The kings of ancient countries were extremely powerful, and they even had the support of the Violet Thunder sect. Most probably they wanted to seize the throne. The Yi country itself is extremely powerful. Initially, my Battle Sword sect and the Violet Thunder sect shouldn't be involved in their internal strife. But because of some special reasons, the Violet Thunder sect is involved in this. Yi Lingshuang's father, a human emperor, is currently heavily injured and on the verge of death. Hence, the Yi country invited the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to act. Lin Shuai continued as he turned and walked away. Qin Wentian followed behind Lin Shuai, not saying anything. Since Lin Shuai came here to tell him this, there must be a reason behind it. Lingshuang wishes to return immediately, but I'm worried that something might happen to her. Hence I stopped her. After all, with her current strength, there's no use for her to return. In fact, she might even be plotted against. At the same time, I've also sent people to investigate the situation in the Yi country. Now that the situation is extremely urgent, my Battle Sword sect is preparing to send some disciples to the capital of the Yi country. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. Although he wouldn't be able to change anything with his current cultivation base, since Lin Shuai said this, It was obvious that he hoped for him to go out and roam the world, tempering himself. An instant later, Qin Wentian saw a group of silhouettes preparing to set off. It was none other than Yi Lingshuang and her companions. If you guys are together, no one would dare to plot against Lingshuang. Also, junior brother Qin, you have to remember an unwritten rule. In the royal sacred region, there are many conflicts between the transcendent powers. Heavenly Dipper sovereigns can't interfere in the matters of celestial phenomenon ascendants, but if a Heavenly Dipper sovereign dies because of a conflict between disciples, celestial phenomenon ascendants are forbidden from taking revenge. If not, a war would easily erupt. Lin Shui spoke, his words causing Qin Wentian's expression to stiffen. He had once experienced the conflict between the transcendent powers of Grand Xia. Once a conflict broke out between the upper echelons of Grand Xia, it would basically be a war between sections. Only when one side was annihilated would the conflict cease. Most probably, the transcendent powers of the royal sacred region also feared war between sects, which was why there was such an unwritten rule. Chapter 524. Within the Battle Sword sect, over 10 young men rode on their flying swords and soared up into the air, transforming into beams of white light. This group of silhouettes were none other than the disciples of the Battle Sword sect who were heading to Yi. Qin Wentian was naturally among them. These disciples were all at the Heavenly Dipper realm. After all, Yi was an ancient country with a history of over 10,000 years. It was impossible for the Battle Sword sect to forcefully interfere with the internal affairs of an ancient country. It was only because of the friendship between them that these disciples were willing to accompany Yi Lingshuang on this trip. At the very least, they could ensure her safety. The leader of this group was a young man in black. His cultivation base was at the 8th level of Heavenly Dipper, and he was the personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian Duan Han. The status of the direct disciples of the Swordmaster was generally higher. For example, Duan Han was ranked 9th under Swordmaster Ling Tian, but if he was placed among the disciples of the First Mountain, he obviously wouldn't have such a high ranking. However, everyone still called him 9th senior brother. This was the treatment of the direct disciples of the Sword Master. Duan Han's demeanor was extremely cold, completely different from Lin Shui. He exuded an unmasked sharpness and didn't like to talk much. Such silence added a sense of majesty to him. Junior sister, don't worry too much. Since the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is here, she should be able to temporarily suppress Emperor Ye's injuries. A female disciple beside Yi Lingshuang consoled. Her name was Qiao Yu, and her relationship with Yi Lingshuang in the Battle Sword sect had always been pretty good. Yi Lingshuang nodded lightly, but the worry in her eyes couldn't be masked. I heard that the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a peerless beauty. I'll be able to meet her soon. How exciting! Lu Yun's eyes gleamed, causing the others to stare at him with disdain. Although this fellow had a lecherous personality, his words always made others feel relaxed. You have no hope. Qiao Yu spoke with disdain. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even the geniuses from the various ancient countries and clans who wished to propose marriage would trample over the gates of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. However, the Medicine Sovereign Valley wouldn't allow them to enter. The most important thing is that the Holy Maiden herself of the Medicine Sovereign Valley likes me. For someone as handsome as me, I might be able to gain her favor. Lu Yun was currently dreaming. Qin Wentian felt pain in his heart when he heard their words as he involuntarily thought of Mo Qingcheng. The Pill Emperor Hall of the past was similar to the current Medicine Sovereign Valley. Such a transcendent power that specialized in pill concoction was a target that all the major powers wanted to recruit. However, he had no idea of Mo Qingcheng of the Pill of Qin. When he thought back to the time when the Pill Emperor Hall sent Qingcheng to be sacrificed as a sacrifice, flames of rage burned in his heart. He would definitely return to the Pill Emperor Hall. However, was Qingcheng still alive in this world? He had once investigated in Grand Xia, but there was no news of Mo Qingcheng at all. After he fainted during that battle, Mo Qingcheng also completely vanished, as though she had never appeared in Grand Xia before. The Pill Emperor Hall also didn't say anything about her. What are you thinking about? Don't tell me you also have designs on the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Lu Yun smiled as he glanced at Qin Wentian beside him. Qin Wentian shook his head as he asked, "The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Is this power very strong?" "Naturally, but I have no idea how strong they are exactly. Because the Medicine Sovereign Valley doesn't have any conflicts with others, nobody would find trouble with them. Hence, their status in the royal sacred region is transcendent. Not only that, the Medicine Sovereign is a 5th-ranked alchemist. Even for the peak powers including the 9 great sects, who can guarantee that they wouldn't need his help one day? In terms of alchemy, the Medicine Sovereign Valley is even stronger than the Royal Sacred Sect, standing at the pinnacle of the Royal Sacred Region." Lu Yun slowly explained, his words causing Qin Wentian to silently nod his head. As expected of a transcendent power. On the way, Qin Wentian and Lu Yun chatted for quite a while. The main point was Lu Yun speaking while Qin Wentian listened. Other than introducing the situation in the Royal Sacred Region, Lu Yun also brought Qin Wentian to those good places where beauties were as common as the clouds. This caused Qin Wentian to be speechless. Half a day later, Qin Wentian and the rest finally arrived at the capital city of Yi. Within the inner city of the ancient country, soldiers clad in resplendent armor could be seen. The towering city gates seemed to be cast from gold, exuding a simple and unadorned aura. This was the core region of Yi, with the royal palace as well as numerous king residences. The security here was extremely tight, and experts were as common as the clouds. "Halt!" A loud shout rang out as a golden beam of light shot up into the skies. A general wielded a golden long spear, pointing it at those from the battle sword sect. "Let's go down." Yi Lingshuang spoke. The group of them descended as many armored soldiers soared up into the air, blocking their path. The general in the lead icily stated, "This is an important place for the royal clan of Yi." "Impudent!" Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. At this moment she retracted her gentle demeanor, exuding an intense aura of imposingness as she icily spoke. "You actually dare to obstruct this princess?" Only now did that guard notice Yi Lingshuang. A cold smile flickered in his eyes. Now that the Qi King was in control, it wouldn't be long before this woman became a prisoner. Yet she still wanted to act like a princess here? However, this woman was truly beautiful, and since she joined the Battle Sword sect, they couldn't afford to offend her too much. "So it's Princess Lingshuang. This subordinate has failed in his duty and failed to recognize you. Please forgive me." That general spoke, yet there was no expression of guilt on his face. He turned his gaze onto the others as he spoke, however. "This is an important place for the royal clan. It's not too appropriate for princess to bring a bunch of strangers here." "Impudent, this princess brought a few friends here as guests. How can I allow you to talk so much?" Yi Lingshuang coldly snorted. "Offending your superiors, take him down for me." She was the princess of Yi. Yet a mere guard dared to be so impudent. This was an obvious provocation to her authority. Most probably, her royal father's current situation was extremely dire. Thinking of this, Yi Lingshuang grew even more anxious. But as her command rang out, none of the guards moved. Nobody obeyed. Duan Han's hands trembled. His black robes fluttered in the wind as a cold sword light flashed. Instantly, that guard's countenance drastically changed as he stabbed out with his long spear, emitting a brilliant golden light. Puchi! A black-colored sword pierced through the center of his brows. Momentarily, the countenances of the guards drastically changed as they all erupted forth with tyrannical auras. This group of guards were actually all Heavenly Dipper sovereigns. However, Duan Han swept his gaze over. His deep eyes seemed to shoot out numerous sharp swords. Yi Lingshuang naturally understood Duan Han's intentions when she saw his methods. She coldly snorted. "This man offended his superiors. He shall be executed. If there's anyone else who dares to obstruct us, kill them all without mercy." As the sound of her voice faded, the group of guards stepped out. This time around nobody dared to obstruct them. Those guards stared at the corpse of their commander as their countenances turned ashen. That was an expert at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, yet he was killed with a single sword strike. Are the people of the Battle Sword sect really so tyrannical? Those guards felt their hearts trembling, yet they didn't dare to say anything. They didn't expect Duan Han's methods to be so ruthless, directly killing him without saying a word. The members of the Battle Sword sect continued on their way. This royal territory was extremely majestic and there were many king residences here, each of which occupied an area of several hundred miles. Occasionally, there would be powerful experts glancing at them in the air, causing Qin Wentian to have a clearer understanding of how powerful the Yi country was. Most probably, the experts from a single king's residence were sufficient to sweep through the entire Grand Xia Empire, let alone the entire Yi country. Finally, a majestic ancient kingdom appeared before their eyes. There were also towering city walls that seemed to be cast from pure gold. A group of figures walked out from within with smiles on their faces. "Why didn't you inform us beforehand that Princess Lingshuang is returning?" An expert in the lead laughed. However, Yi Lingshuang's countenance was extremely terrifying. This was someone from the Frost King Manor, one of her clan uncles. They actually appeared in the royal palace? From this, one could very well imagine how serious the situation here was. Most probably, the entire royal palace was already under their control. After all, the Frost King was extremely close to the Qi King. "I want to see my royal father," Yi Lingshuang faintly spoke. That expert glanced at the members of the Battle Sword sect beside Yi Lingshuang as he smiled. "The elites of the Battle Sword sect have truly brought light to our humble Yi country. Please enter the royal palace to take a rest." The others didn't bother with him. They came in such an imposing manner and didn't bother to conceal their presence. Given how powerful the Yi country was, they should have long received news of their arrival. The members of the Battle Sword sect directly stepped through the air and entered the royal palace. Right now, in this majestic royal palace, there were armored soldiers everywhere, waiting for their arrival. From this, one could see how tense the situation was. Yi Lingshuang's heart was filled with worry for her father. She sped towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace, like a gust of wind. Outside the Human Emperor Palace, there were currently many experts gathered here. It was as though all the hegemons of the various powers were gathered here. Yi Lingshuang's gaze swept over as she stared in a certain direction. Over there was a young man with a countenance like lightning. He was clad in royal robes and exuded an extraordinary air of imposingness. His deep eyes seemed to be able to see through people. Not only that, around this young man, there were several other experts of the same generation. All of them were extraordinary and exuded a tyrannical aura. Each and every one of them was an elite among the younger generation, incomparably dazzling. When the gazes of the young men from the Battle Sword sect met with their gazes, a terrifying sharpness permeated the air. Experts from the Violet Thunder sect. Qin Wentian silently mused. There was no need to doubt that the young man in royal robes was none other than the Prince Liyun spoke of. The son of the Qi King, a heavens chosen from the Violet Thunder sect. A demon-level genius of his generation. Those beside him were definitely from the same generation as him from the Violet Thunder sect. If one were to say that the Violet Thunder sect didn't participate in the dark, wanting to allow the Qi King to control the Yi country, no one would believe it. Yi Lingshuang's silhouette flickered as she flew towards the direction of the Human Emperor Palace. However, a group of silhouettes blocked her path. "Princess, the Human Emperor is seriously ill. The Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley is currently treating him. Princess, please don't wait outside. My royal father is seriously ill. How can I not be by his side?" "It's fine," Yi Lingshuang spoke. The people in front could see the determination in her eyes as they opened up a path for her, blocking Duan Han and the others from advancing. "You guys wait here for me." Yi Lingshuang turned her head and spoke to Duan Han and the others. Since they were already in the royal palace, there shouldn't be anyone who would dare to harm Yi Lingshuang in public. Hence, Duan Han and the others would wait here. Chapter 525. Qin Wentian stood in the midst of the Battle Sword sect, quietly immersing himself in the majesty of the ancient country. An ancient country that had existed for over 10,000 years was truly terrifying. Lu Yun told him on the way here that the elimination rate of the major powers in the Royal Sacred Region was extremely high. Occasionally, a few demon-level geniuses would appear, and once they matured, they would be able to topple the entire major power. Hence, many transcendent powers in the Royal Sacred Region would be annihilated in the annals of history. At the same time, there would also be many that would rise up. Like the great waves washing away the sands, those that could remain standing for 10,000 years would all be extremely terrifying. The ancient Yi country was naturally the same. Gazing at the group of young men from the Violet Thunder sect, they were also looking over. The person in the lead should be the son of the Qi King, the demon-level genius of the Violet Thunder sect, Yi Kongfan. His talent was terrifying, possessing a tribulation lightning bloodline, and an innate lightning physique that was extremely suitable for the ultimate arts of the Violet Thunder sect. Right now, his cultivation base was already at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper, and his attacks were even more terrifying. This Yi Kongfan was clad in golden robes, exuding the aura of a king. His resplendent eyes seemed to contain a terrifying sense of danger. At this moment, Yi Kongfan's gaze landed on Duan Han. Staring at his aura, he emotionlessly stated, "The 9th personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian, Duan Han." Yi Kongfan. Duan Han similarly stared at him, his black eyes gleaming with sharpness. A sharp smile could be seen in Yi Kongfan's eyes as he glanced at those from the Battle Sword sect. To think that members of the Battle Sword sect would have the time to visit my Yi country as guests. I have to properly entertain all of you. However, I'm sure that members of the Battle Sword sect have no interest in the mundane world and only pursue the path of cultivation. Just nice, I've already invited the Holy Maiden to the battle arena of my Yi country, wanting to witness the atmosphere of martial arts. Now that the members of the Battle Sword sect have arrived, how about we head there together after the Holy Maiden exits? The competition in the Royal Sacred Region was extremely cruel, and the country of Yi was naturally the same. The battle arena was a place where the martial path was held. Those who performed outstandingly would be heavily rewarded by the Yi country, and might even be recruited as subordinates. How would we dare to reject the prince's invitation? This Yi Kongfan was the son of the Qi King. Although he was also a heaven chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, the status of the son of the Qi King was naturally more prominent. I heard that the personal disciple of Sword Sovereign Ling Tian is extremely powerful. If he could display his prowess in the battle arena, I'm sure the people of Yi would be extremely excited. A young man from the Violet Thunder sect beside Yi Kongfan spoke, his words causing the eyes of those from the Battle Sword sect to gleam with sharpness. The status of a disciple of the Battle Sword sect was extraordinary. How could they fight against people from Yi in the battle arena? Wouldn't that be damaging their own status? If those from the Violet Thunder sect are willing, we can go up and seek guidance from them, Zhang Huai coldly stated, his words causing the young man from the Violet Thunder sect to laugh coldly. The battle intent radiating from both sides was so intense that it felt as though they would attack at the slightest disagreement. The competition between the 9 great sects was exceedingly intense. This kind of competition could be felt from within the Royal Sacred Sect to outside. Every time they met, there would always be a sense of conflict. This was especially so for those from the Battle Sword sect. Many people in the Royal Sacred Region claimed that although the Battle Sword sect had the lowest number of members, their members were all elites and their individual combat prowess was the strongest. Hence, the disciples of the other 8 great sects naturally weren't willing to accept this. Qin Wentian had already experienced the conflict between the 9 great sects back when he was in Xianqing City. Hence, he didn't find it strange at all. At this moment, an old man in long robes walked towards those from the Battle Sword sect as he politely stated, "This old man thanks all of you for protecting the princess back to her country." This old man was a subject of the human emperor's bloodline. When he saw the experts from the Battle Sword sect accompanying Yi Lingshuang over, how could he not understand the intentions of those from the Battle Sword sect? His heart was filled with gratitude. Lingshuang is my junior apprentice sister. This is something that should be done. Old sir, there's no need for you to worry. Duan Han returned the courtesy. An expression of gratitude appeared on the face of the old man as he continued. Now that the situation in Yi is unclear, I'll be so bold as to say this. If you were to meet with a calamity, I hope that all of you would be able to protect the princess, preventing her from acting recklessly. Right. Duan Han nodded. Old sir, please don't worry. Since the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is willing to treat the human emperor, she would naturally be able to do so. The old man shook his head, his eyes flashing with worry. Evidently, he wasn't too optimistic. The human emperor's illness has already persisted for quite some time. The old man sighed. Duan Han and the rest furrowed their brows. Seems like the human emperor's condition was extremely serious. This old man didn't even have enough confidence in the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Not only that, Yi was an ancient country. Although the royal clan was embroiled in endless disputes, the bloodline of the human emperor was still extremely powerful. Most probably, the human emperor had already invited a powerful alchemist to treat the human emperor. Now that they had no choice but to invite the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, they had no choice but to do so. The status of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was transcendent. It was extremely difficult for ordinary people to enter, let alone for the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. Most probably, the bloodline of the Yi country had paid a huge price. After waiting outside for a moment, Yi Lingshuang finally exited. Her eyes were slightly moist. It was evident that she had been crying. Beside her, there were several beautiful matrons dressed in palace robes. All of them were concubines. There were also 2 young men who resembled her, the princes of Yi. Yi Tan thanks everyone from the Battle Sword sect. This group of people arrived before the Battle Sword sect. The eldest prince Yi Tan bowed, appearing extremely courteous. Those from the Battle Sword sect were all from the younger generation. The courtesy could be light or heavy. It depended on whether the other party respected it or not. There's no need to be so polite, Duan Han replied in a light voice. His gaze then turned to Yi Lingshuang as he asked, Lingshuang, how's the situation? Royal father has been inflicted with a slow-acting poison, and the poison has already been in his body for a very long time. This poison is extremely well hidden, and when it erupts, it can claim the life of a supreme expert. In addition to the fact that royal father has just experienced a great battle, the poison has already spread throughout his entire body. Right now, he's in a precarious situation. Yi Lingshuang's voice was hoarse as her eyes reddened. Even the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley have no solution? Xiao Yu asked. The holy maiden said that she can only temporarily suppress the poison. If we want to cure him. Yi Lingshuang didn't continue, but everyone understood what she meant. Their hearts trembled. This poison was able to claim the life of the human emperor. From this, one could see how terrifying it was. At this moment, another group of silhouettes walked out from the human emperor ancient hall. These silhouettes were all clad in white and were extremely beautiful, resembling celestial maidens. The gazes of everyone turned over. Yi Kongfan and the rest took the lead as he smiled. Thank you all for your hard work. Qin Wentian similarly inclined his head and stared in that direction, only to see a group of beautiful silhouettes. Most probably, these were the experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley who were protecting the Holy Maiden. Since they were all females, this was naturally for the sake of taking better care of the Holy Maiden. Following the gazes of the white-robed maidens, another 3 silhouettes appeared. The maidens on the left and right were all extremely beautiful, yet at this moment their radiance was completely overshadowed, because the maiden in the center was simply too dazzling. The moment she appeared, it was as though everything in the surroundings had to give way to her, losing their luster. Devastatingly beautiful, capable of toppling empires, Lu Yun's eyes gleamed as he stared at that figure. Not only him, everyone from the Battle Sword sect was also staring at the Holy Maiden. They couldn't find any words to describe the radiance radiating from her. These experts from the Battle Sword sect were all people with strong mental fortitude. But at this instant they were all in a daze. However, Qin Wentian's heart pounded violently. He even forgot to breathe. After which, a radiant smile blossomed on his face as the huge rock in his heart was finally lifted. Qingcheng. Qin Wentian inclined his head to the heavens and sighed. After which, his silhouette flickered, akin to a bolt of lightning as he dashed towards the direction of the Holy Maiden. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually none other than Mo Qingcheng. Upon seeing Qin Wentian's silhouette dashing out, the experts from the Battle Sword sect were all stunned. The experts from the Violet Thunder sect abruptly turned and stared at Qin Wentian, their countenances gleaming with a cold light. Impudent! Yi Kongfan coldly snorted. His palms blasted out as terrifying tribulation lightning manifested in the air, blasting towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian lifted his palms in response, yet with a thunderous boom, his body was forced back several steps. Intense pain radiated from his palms. The might of that tribulation lightning had actually caused his entire arm to be numb. The maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all coldly stared at Qin Wentian. Cold chi gushed forth, enveloping Qin Wentian as a suppressive pressure bore down on Qin Wentian. It was as though if Qin Wentian made the slightest movement, they would kill him on the spot. Junior brother. The experts from the Battle Sword sect all felt the killing intent. Their silhouettes flickered as they rushed forward, protecting Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian's gaze was only focused on Emo Qingcheng. It was as though he had forgotten everything else. Emo Qingcheng was still alive. What else in this world could be more beautiful than this? His smile was still as radiant as ever as he stared at the Holy Maiden who was the center of attention. The Holy Maiden from the Medicine Sovereign Valley stared at Qin Wentian. The instant his silhouette entered her vision, she felt an intense pain in her heart. Staring at Qin Wentian, her aura was as distant as ever, as though no one could get close to her. She was so dazzling yet so foreign at the same time. How impudent! Seeing that you are a member of the Battle Sword sect, I temporarily won't bother with you. But if there's a next time, I will kill you without mercy. Yi Kongfan coldly snorted. After which he spoke, Holy Maiden, let's head to the battle arena now. Emo Qingcheng's silhouette froze there for a moment before she lifted her foot and departed. Those from the Violet Thunder sect all had cold smiles on their faces as they stared at Qin Wentian. Restrain yourself, that's the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. A young man from the Violet Thunder sect coldly snorted. Even those from the Battle Sword sect were unhappy. Qin Wentian was simply too impulsive, not caring about his image at all. Qin Wentian stood there in a daze. That smile was still on his face. Yet another bolt from the blue struck him. Emo Qingcheng didn't recognize him? What was going on? Emo Qingcheng was in the center of attention as she strolled around the royal palace. However, the two people beside her only saw Emo Qingcheng clutching her chest as a dazed expression appeared on her face. It was as though she was in extreme pain. Holy Maiden, what's wrong? A girl beside her asked in a low voice. His face is so familiar. My heart is in so much pain, Emo Qingcheng mumbled, her words causing the countenances of the two beside her to stiffen. Back then, Emo Qingcheng's life was in danger and she was saved by the Medicine Sovereign. However, her memories were blurry and other than her instinctive cultivation, she had forgotten everything else. They didn't say anything, but they had never seen such an expression on Emo Qingcheng's face before. It was as though she had lost her soul. Her countenance was pale white. Emo Qingcheng felt the pain in her heart intensifying as beads of cold sweat appeared on her forehead. How familiar, how familiar. She wanted to recall something. My head hurts so much. Emo Qingcheng closed her eyes. Unknowingly, tears actually flowed down from the corners of her eyes. It was as though a bolt from the blue had struck her mind. Winter snowflakes filled the air. A young man sat under a tree, looking handsome yet in a daze. He had no idea what the young girl beside him was thinking. The snowflakes were extremely beautiful. The two of them sat under the tree, staring at the ancient tree that was covered in snow. Innocent smiles could be seen on the faces of the young girl beside him. The young girl stretched her hands out, catching the falling snowflakes. Calling him a Dumbo, she then departed with a smile on her face. This scene was so beautiful that it broke the hearts of those who saw it. Holy Maiden. At this moment, the two beside her turned pale with fright. When they saw Emo Qingcheng opening her eyes, her face was actually filled with tears. Chapter 526. The maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley halted their steps because their Holy Maiden had also stopped, standing there motionlessly. Many turned their heads to look at the Holy Maiden as their countenances changed. One of the beautiful maidens even glanced at the two maidens beside her. What happened to the Holy Maiden? She simply couldn't imagine that the beautiful face of the Holy Maiden was actually filled with tears. What had happened? I don't know. The two maidens beside her were also flustered. But from the Holy Maiden's words, it seems that she has recalled something. The eyes of the maidens from the Medicine Sovereign Valley all flashed with sharpness. How powerful was the Medicine Sovereign? Although the Holy Maiden was heavily injured and her life was hanging by a thread, he still managed to save her and even granted her a chance to be reborn. The medicine sovereign had also said that the Holy Maiden's memories might be a little blurry temporarily, but once she suffered an intense impact, she would recover sooner or later. Could it be that the Holy Maiden was about to recall her past memories? But when did she suffer an intense impact? They had always been following beside the Holy Maiden, and nothing had happened. The only unexpected incident was when that young man rushed to the side of the Holy Maiden. For such a minor matter, they wouldn't even care about it. Naturally, they wouldn't have thought that this would be the so-called intense impact. Their Holy Maiden still stood there, as though she had lost her soul. Her tears flowed unceasingly, and her hands were clutching her chest. At this moment no one dared to disturb her. The eyes of Yi Kongfan and the rest gleamed with sharpness. They were all stunned by this scene. What had happened to this beautiful maiden? Nobody knew what had happened to Mo Qingcheng. It was as though a bolt of lightning flashed through her mind as the face of that young man appeared unceasingly in her mind. The first time they met in the dark forest, she had saved a young man, yet she had silently left without acknowledging him. The second time they met was in the royal capital of Chu. At that time, the Emperor Star Academy and the other martial academies were recruiting students. She was sitting in a sedan, and after a brief glance she smiled sweetly at him. And after that, during the training of the Dark Forest Martial Academy, she had misunderstood him. Her heart was filled with intense guilt. Scenes after scenes flashed unceasingly in her mind, all the way until the Junlin banquet. The youth of the past had already grown up, and his wanton and unrestrained silhouette gradually imprinted itself into her heart. Gradually she started to feel the feeling of love. That feeling was truly beautiful and sweet. She constantly thought about it, longed for it. But in the end, he still managed to find her. For her, he traversed across boundless territories, killing Hua Xiaoyun of the Hua clan. For her, he was incomparably arrogant on the heavenly fate-ranking battle platform, holding her hand, telling the world that she was his woman. At that moment it was as though the entire world belonged to her. She would never be able to forget the resolute look in his eyes when countless gazes turned to look at her. It was as though he was announcing to the world that even if he had to become enemies with the entire world, he would still hold her hand tightly. Her tears stained her robes. Nobody knew what the Holy Maiden had experienced, what she recalled, what memories caused her heart to ache so much. Mo Qingcheng clutched her chest. It was truly painful. She thought back to the final scene. Qin Wentian sacrificed his blood to the demon sword, transforming into a great rock and splitting the entire Pill Emperor Hall apart, all for the sake of saving her. She thought back to the scene where he was surrounded by countless experts, and was heavily injured by a celestial phenomenon ascendant. How could she forget this? How could she forget everything? Abruptly, the spectators only saw Mo Qingcheng turning and madly sprinting back the way she came. Her snow-white robes fluttered in the wind as her tears flowed unceasingly down her cheeks, dripping onto the ground. Holy Maiden! Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley and the Violet Thunder sect all turned pale with fright as they chased after Mo Qingcheng. What exactly happened? Why did things turn out like this? Mo Qingcheng had experienced life all over again, and the pain in her heart was so deep that it pierced through her heart. But when Qin Wentian saw Mo Qingcheng walking past him, he also felt an intense pain in his heart. How could this be? Qingcheng actually didn't remember him? But when he thought of the scene where Qingcheng's life hung by a thread, he understood. He didn't blame her. Wasn't it already a blessing from the heavens that Qingcheng was still alive? Once he was so afraid that she would leave him forever. But now he once again saw that silhouette that he couldn't forget. This could already be considered a beautiful ending. Even if she didn't remember him, he still believed in Mo Qingcheng. He believed that she didn't do this intentionally. She must have forgotten something because of her heavy injuries. But he also believed that Qingcheng would definitely remember him. As he thought of this, a radiant smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Inclining his head, he stared at the sky. The sunlight cascaded down on his face, causing him to feel extremely comfortable. Being alive was the best, wasn't it? Junior brother, you have truly broadened the horizons of your senior brother. Although the Holy Maiden's beauty can topple empires, you can't just rush up to her like that. Lu Yun patted Qin Wentian's shoulder as he stared at Qin Wentian with a look of worship in his eyes. Junior brother, you are too impulsive. The status of the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is extraordinary. As disciples of the Battle Sword sect, we should at least pay attention to our image. Qiao Yu persuaded. This Qin Wentian's actions were indeed a little too impulsive. Qin Wentian nodded his head lightly. He didn't explain anything, and a faint smile could be seen on his face. Yi Lingshuang stared at Qin Wentian speechlessly. It was one thing for this fellow to be lecherous, but why was he acting like this at such a time? The Holy Maiden was here to save her father. What would happen to her father if she offended those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Junior brother Qin, in the future, can you control your emotions for the sake of helping me? Yi Lingshuang couldn't blame Qin Wentian. After all, he was escorting her back to Yi together with the Battle Sword sect. She could only persuade him. Senior sister, it's all my fault. Qin Wentian could understand Yi Lingshuang. Her father's life might be in danger at any moment, and the people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley were her only hope. If he were to offend those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley because of a moment of rashness, Yi Lingshuang naturally didn't want to see that. Thank you, junior brother Qin, for understanding me. Yi Lingshuang softly spoke. Qin Wentian shook his head. There were several experts from Yi around him, and among them there were some from the human emperor's faction. Their gazes were filled with unfriendliness, and as for those from the Qi King's faction, all of them had mocking smiles on their faces. Most probably they were mocking him for not knowing what was good for him. Qingcheng. Sighing silently in his heart, Qin Wentian turned and spoke. Didn't those from the Violet Thunder sect say that they were going to the battle arena? Let's go. Everyone turned and headed in the direction of the battle arena. Yi Lingshuang also accompanied them. As for the human emperor, he was taken care of by the various royal concubines. But at this moment, their gazes suddenly froze as they stood rooted to the spot. In front of them, a flawlessly beautiful silhouette was rushing over. Her countenance was so beautiful that it could topple empires. Just a single glance at her caused the hearts of those who saw her to shatter. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? Everyone was stunned. What was going on? The Holy Maiden was actually crying in such a heartbroken manner. Rushing over here. Qin Wentian was also stunned. But very swiftly after, a smile appeared on his face. He saw that Mo Qingcheng was currently looking in his direction. Mo Qingcheng halted her steps and stood in front of the crowd. She lowered her head slightly, wanting to use her hands to wipe away her tears, but to no avail. When she inclined her head, her tears were still flowing down unceasingly. Yet beneath her tears a flawless smile could be seen. Such a beauty not only caused the men from the Battle Sword sect to be stunned, even Yi Lingshuang was deeply shocked. Qin Wentian took a step forward, walking to the side of Mo Qingcheng. He stretched out his hand and placed it on Mo Qingcheng's face, wiping away her tears as he smiled. Don't cry anymore, you've already become a big tabby cat. His voice was extremely gentle. Although Mo Qingcheng was smiling after hearing his words, she had no way to stop her tears. After which, she rushed forward once again and actually leaped into Qin Wentian's embrace, hugging him tightly as though she was afraid to lose him again. Those from the Battle Sword sect were completely stunned. They rubbed their eyes, feeling that this was all a dream. Lu Yun's mouth was so wide open as though he had just seen a ghost. He gulped down his saliva as he cursed in a low voice. Which bastard is using an illusion technique? Yi Lingshuang's heart pounded violently. She simply didn't dare to believe her own eyes. The Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually acting like a little girl, leaping into Qin Wentian's embrace. What was happening to this world? Holy Maiden. When those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley arrived, they were also stunned by the scene before them. It was as though they had been struck by lightning. All of them were as dumbstruck as wooden chickens as they stared at the Holy Maiden leaping into the embrace of the young man. That tear-stained face, was it because of him? That heart-wrenching pain, was it because of him? That intense feeling the Medicine Sovereign spoke of, was it because of a single glance at him in the midst of a sea of people? Their minds were in a state of chaos. They had no way to imagine what kind of feeling this was. Their Holy Maiden and this young man in front of them. Did they have an unforgettable relationship? In that case, the impulsiveness of this young man earlier wasn't because of the Holy Maiden's beauty, but because she was his lover. When those from the Violet Thunder sect arrived, all of their countenances turned ashen. They had some feelings for Mo Qingcheng, but they didn't expect things to turn out like this. Especially Yi Kongfan, as a heavens chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, the prince of Yi country, the future crown prince. He wanted to take this opportunity to gain the affection of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and take Mo Qingcheng down. But now, the scene before him had completely shattered his plans. Even a fool could tell that not only did the two of them know each other, they were a pair of lovers. However, how could the holy maiden fall in love with him? How could he be worthy of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley? As he thought of this, a cold light flickered in Yi Kongfan's eyes. I'm sorry. Mo Qingcheng kept repeating these 3 words. She hated herself. She actually forgot about him. How could she forget him? Even now, she had no way to forgive herself. She hated herself. Qingcheng, don't be like this. Qin Wentian could feel the guilt in Mo Qingcheng's voice as his heart trembled. How could he not feel that he owed Qingcheng something? Mo Qingcheng nodded her head. Yet she still hugged Qin Wentian tightly. It was as though in this world only the two of them were left. It was as though the others didn't exist. Chapter 527. The two of them hugged each other tightly, causing the others to be stunned speechless. They gradually understood that the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley and Qin Wentian must have had a very deep relationship. It was rumored that the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was sent to the Medicine Sovereign Valley when she was on the verge of death. What exactly happened at that time, this young man from the Battle Sword sect should know. So the name of the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley is Qingcheng. What a pity, what a pity. Lu Yun sighed in sorrow. What are you lamenting about? Xiao Yu glared at this fellow. I'm sighing because she didn't meet this young master first. Lu Yun was incomparably vexed, causing the others to roll their eyes. This bastard was truly an extreme character. However, Yi Lingshuang had another thought in her mind. The holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley was actually Qin Wentian's lover. In that case, if Qin Wentian was willing to help her, the holy maiden would definitely do her best to treat her father's poison. She might even invite even more powerful experts from the Medicine Sovereign Valley to help. At that time, there might really be hope for her father. The Medicine Sovereign Valley was a transcendent existence. There were some supreme existences that even the Yi country couldn't invite. It was basically impossible to locate them. However, the holy maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley would definitely know where they were. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng separated. Mo Qingcheng stared at Qin Wentian's countenance as her gentle hands gently caressed Qin Wentian's face. She stared at Qin Wentian's body, as though she was afraid that Qin Wentian would lose a piece of flesh. When she thought of what Qin Wentian had to endure in the Pill Emperor Hall, she started crying again. There were thousands and thousands of words she wanted to say, but she didn't know where to start. Once again, she leaned into Qin Wentian's embrace. The people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley didn't know what they were feeling. Their holy maiden at this moment had completely transformed into a little woman, so gentle and exquisite. That gaze of hers was enough to melt the hearts of all the men in the world. What kind of deep love was that? All of them wanted to know. What was the story between the holy maiden and this young man from the Battle Sword sect? Pill Emperor Hall, I thought we would all die. Mo Qingcheng sobbed softly. Never in her wildest dreams would she have thought that they would still be alive, and that there would be a day where they could reunite. Mo Qingcheng's tear-stained face was filled with a smile. She was truly happy. She had never been so happy before. She felt that every strand of air was so fresh, and every ray of sunlight was so beautiful. It's all in the past now. Whatever the Pill Emperor Hall has done to you, I will make them pay for it sooner or later. The obsession in Qin Wentian's heart was exceedingly deep. The Pill Emperor Hall was like a thorn in his heart. Sooner or later, he would pull this thorn out, causing the Pill Emperor Hall to vanish from this world. Every time he thought of how the Pill Emperor Hall actually used Mo Qingcheng's life to nurture corpses, he would feel a wave of pain in his heart. He almost thought that he had lost his lover. Meeting her today made him feel even more beautiful. After separating once again, Qin Wentian stared into Mo Qingcheng's eyes, as though he couldn't get enough of her. Mo Qingcheng's tears turned into a smile, and this smile of hers caused Qin Wentian's heart to be intoxicated. Holy Maiden. Behind her, Those from the Medicine Sovereign Valley called out. Emo Chingcheng turned back, and when she faced the crowd, she reverted back to her cold and lofty self, causing people to feel a sense of distance. She was so resplendent, causing people to feel as though she was unreachable. Yet at this moment, the eyes of the Holy Maiden flickered with a blissful smile. This was the first time the people from the Medicine Sovereign Valley saw such a side to the Holy Maiden. They couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. Seems like no one could stop the Holy Maiden's love for this young man from the Battle Sword sect. Given how much the Medicine Sovereign doted on her, he would definitely accommodate her. However, they weren't that happy in their hearts. Although Qin Wentian was a disciple of the Battle Sword sect, he was after all just an ordinary disciple. Although his demeanor was extraordinary, his cultivation base wasn't that high. This time around he wasn't the leader of the group. And Emo Chingcheng was the Holy Maiden of their Medicine Sovereign Valley, the most dazzling maiden of them all. Initially they thought that even if the Holy Maiden found her lover, he would at least be someone whose name shook the entire world, a supreme genius. Hence, when they saw Qin Wentian, they couldn't help but feel a trace of pity in their hearts. Although they wouldn't say anything, they couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. Ever since they entered the Yi country, Yi Kongfan's attitude towards the Holy Maiden was clear for all to see. Yi Kongfan was a heaven's chosen of the Violet Thunder sect, and had an extremely high status. He had a tribulation lightning bloodline and an innate lightning physique. At such a young age, he was already at the 7th level of Heavenly Dipper. But even if such a person was matched up with the Holy Maiden, they still felt that it was insufficient. Only those few famous characters in the Royal Sacred Region were qualified to be in a relationship with the Holy Maiden. However, Qin Wentian and Emo Chingcheng had no idea what they were thinking. Even if they knew, why would they care? Junior brother Qin, your senior brother truly admires you. Lu Yun walked up and spoke. Since the Holy Maiden is your girlfriend, it's easier to talk. Do you want to introduce a few fairies to your senior brother? Your skin is truly thick, Xiao Yu speechlessly replied. Her words caused Qin Wentian to laugh. Isn't senior sister Lingshuang beautiful? Why must you give up what's close at hand and seek what's far away? Junior sister doesn't like me at all. Lu Yun spoke in agony, his words causing those from the royal clan to be dumbfounded. They silently mused that this senior brother of the princess was truly a weirdo. Oh yeah, since the Holy Maiden is your girlfriend, does that mean junior sister Qing Er has any relationship with you? Lu Yun finally revealed his true intentions. He actually had designs on Qing Er. At this moment, he was thinking that this bastard Qin Wentian already had a Holy Maiden whose beauty could topple empires. Could it be that he still wanted to keep that ice lotus for himself? Wouldn't that be too much of a beast? Don't blame me for not reminding you. Qing Er's cultivation base is at the peak of the 6th level of Heavenly Dipper, and her mandate of space has already reached the perfection boundary. Senior brother, you should go and pursue her. Qin Wentian laughed. He was thinking that if Lu Yun dared to have any designs on Qing Er, what sort of miserable ending would he have? Lu Yun shivered. The gazes of those from the Battle Sword sect froze as well. That iceberg maiden who didn't like to speak was actually so powerful? Everyone, the preparations for the battle arena have already been completed. Why don't we head there together to take a look? At this moment, Yi Kongfan's voice rang out. Although he was extremely unhappy in his heart, a smile still hung on his face, concealing his emotions well. Emo Chingcheng was still holding onto Qin Wentian's hand. She stared at Qin Wentian as an expression of inquiry appeared on her face. Let's go and take a look. Qin Wentian laughed. Emo Chingcheng nodded her head in agreement as well. The rest of them then proceeded in the direction of the battle arena of the ancient nations. The competition in the Royal Sacred Region was extremely cruel. Hence, the major powers were all fond of martial arts. Yi was the same as well. The battle arena of the Yi country was one of the most important places in the Yi country. It was extremely vast, filled with people as far as the eye could see. Within the battle arena, there were a total of 12 battle platforms. The battles on the 12 platforms would never cease, and every day, there would be countless people contending for supremacy on the platforms, striving for consecutive victories and obtaining rewards from the Yi country. There were even some who were recruited by the Yi country. Not only for the Yi country, there were also many major powers in the Yi country that would gather here. They would similarly throw out olive branches to those with outstanding performances in the battle arena, hoping to recruit them into their sections. Naturally, there would also be occasional conflicts between the disciples of these major powers, which would also be resolved in the battle arena. In the middle of the vast battle arena, there was a pathway leading to the best seats in the spectator stands. There were armored guards on both sides of the pathway, and those who weren't members of the royal clan weren't allowed to sit there. At this moment, a row of silhouettes appeared on the pathway. Instantly, the spectators in the battle arena all inclined their heads, and there were even countless people who stood up. At this moment, the entire battle arena turned silent. They had already heard the news that today, the son of the Qi King, Yi Kongfan from the Violet Thunder sect, would be inviting the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley to the battle arena. This group of people all exuded an extraordinary aura. This was especially so for that beautiful maiden whose beauty could topple empires. She should be none other than the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley. In front of the Medicine Sovereign Valley, there was a group of young men leading the way. The one in the middle exuded the noblest aura, clad in royal robes, and was none other than the crown prince of the Qi King, Yi Kongfan. The armored guards on both sides knelt on one knee as they respectfully called out, "We pay our respects to the crown prince, and welcome the Holy Maiden of the Medicine Sovereign Valley." Their voices shook the heavens and earth, akin to heavenly thunder. This caused countless people to turn their gazes onto Yi Kongfan and the Holy Maiden, Mo Qingcheng, as they viewed the two of them together. These two were truly a pair of absolute geniuses. If they could get together, it would surely become a beautiful story. Rise. Today, I've invited the Holy Maiden here to admire the magnificent scenery of the battle arena of my Yi country. I hope that the young elites of my Yi country will be able to display their brilliance, displaying the magnificence of the martial path of my Yi country. Yi Kongfan's voice reverberated throughout the entire arena. At this moment, the eyes of those from the human emperor clan beside Yi Lingshuang flickered with coldness. Yi Lingshuang's brows were tightly furrowed, appearing extremely unhappy. Kneeling to the crown prince but not to the princess? Qin Wentian stood beside Mo Qingcheng. He glanced at the seats in front of him. Two of the most distinguished seats were naturally reserved for him and Mo Qingcheng by Yi Kongfan, while the other two seats were reserved for him and Mo Qingcheng. Qin Wentian furrowed his brows as a cold light flickered in his eyes. This Yi Kongfan was putting in so much effort to create such a commotion, suppressing the host. Firstly, it was to emphasize his status. Where did he place the real princess of Yi Lingshuang? Secondly, it was to create a commotion for him and Mo Qingcheng, making others feel as though they were a pair of absolute geniuses, creating a misconception that they were plotting something. The vast crowd in the arena also noticed Qin Wentian, who was beside Mo Qingcheng. Although the Holy Maiden was being protected, there was actually a young man beside her. How could the crowd not be suspicious as they silently speculated about his identity? An extremely strange scene appeared in the arena. The spectators were all staring in this direction, while Yi Kongfan and the others also halted their steps. Everyone was waiting to see how Yi Kongfan would arrange the seats. "Holy Maiden, please." Indeed, Yi Kongfan stretched his hand out, gesturing for Mo Qingcheng to sit on one of the two most valuable seats. If Mo Qingcheng sat down, he would definitely sit beside her. Mo Qingcheng furrowed her brows. Although she wasn't a scheming person, she naturally understood Yi Kongfan's intentions. If she sat down and Yi Kongfan sat beside her, where would Qin Wentian be placed? This was something she couldn't accept. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.